Soundstripe. 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 Soundstripe.
Hello and welcome in to episode 3 of the Hauler Podcast for season 3. I am Stephen Borbell, the driver of the number 2 Ford Mustang for Next Level Motorsports, and I'm joined by one familiar face with me and then two special guests that we have on this week. You can realize that Richard's already using his first PTO day of the season for the podcast, and we had to replace him for this week. But jokes aside, Carl, you're here tonight. You're a returning face and voice. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right, Steven. Hey, guys, this is Carl Pooler, driver of the 71 Limitless Esports Chevrolet Z01 Camaro. And as Steven mentioned, we are joined up here with Adam and Mason. Adam, a regular here, but Mason, you won last week in Phoenix. How you doing tonight?
Oh, I'm doing good. Hi guys, it's Mason Hausman driving the number 78 Maverick Motorsports car, and I'm enjoying my night. I got done with my classes early, so that's always a plus.
Very good to hear. And Adam, how are you doing this evening? It's been a minute since
I'm,
you've been here.
I'm doing great. Happy to be back. Adam Buzzio, driver to number 5, Next Level Motorsports Machine. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, you're always welcome, especially when Richard decides to not want to hang out with us. He says how much he loves doing this podcast, but then he's like, you know what? I'm going to miss it this week. But
Yeah, unfortunately, there's a clause in Richard's contract that says if he missed the 3rd episode of the Hauler podcast that he wasn't going to get paid. So,
well,
a bummer
unfortunate
for
for
him.
him. He'll have to
his
wait till
salary
next
has went
season.
from $0 to $0. So,
He actually has to pay you $10 every race he
I
misses.
like this better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Dustin is, no, Brendan is saying Dustin and Brendan are mistreated because they're not invited yet. Y'all have not been invited yet.
Well,
I've
if you
been
stop
slacking.
wrecking people on purpose.
Oh, I like that I can see the chat.
Wait
in
a
the,
minute, wait a minute. Dustin's
and-
been invited after his win at Vegas, wasn't he?
I would have to go back into the files.
Steven's like, I have no comment.
I'm gonna be honest. Once Tuesday night happens, like I try to turn off Discord for 2 days, 3 days sometimes, and just relax. But
See,
well,
this is what happens. Steven's fired.
I am fired. I'm sorry that I have a life sometimes outside of getting with you guys
I'm
every
an
week.
Lies.
But welcome back to episode 3 of season 3. Just want to give a quick shout out to all of our sponsors that allow us to keep racing and doing what we do each week. Obviously, Butt Kicker, the leader in haptics, Sundance Pizza, Idealease, Ascendance Trucks, Rev Sim Shop, and Advanced GG Supplements. Advanced GG Supplements, we do have a 10% off promo code that you can use if you're interested in getting you some supplements at www.advanced.gg. And that promo code is WolfXLive10 for 10% off your order, and any proceeds from your transaction go directly into funding our league and keeping us busy. But yeah, without further ado, we were at Phoenix last season. Just want to jump right into that. And after the first race that we had in Atlanta with 44 guys on the track, it was a little bit of a nightmare with wrecks every lap or every couple of laps. And unfortunately, we expected a similar thing at Phoenix just because that's what tends to happen at Phoenix for whatever reason in the sim. It doesn't happen in real NASCAR by any means, but once you get everyone into the sim at Phoenix, wrecks every lap. And Carl, what was the number? Was it 27 cautions? So 25 cautions for incident at least. I didn't get confirmation if that was a new record.
That is in Sim Hub. Let me see, or Sim Racer Hub. Let me see what we had going on for Richmond.
I knew it was really
Give me just a
close
moment on
either
that
way.
one.
I was close on my estimate. I said 23. So I
Yeah.
guess I was a little overly optimistic, but
Not by much.
not by
Honestly, it
much.
felt like we had 40. They just kept coming and coming, and
I know at one point we looked and we had ran over half the laps under caution, which
Yeah.
is horrendous. But
I just remember my head getting numb just by going so slow the entire time. I was like, oh, this is just so.
well,
at
the
least you
thing
didn't have
about
anyone in front of you.
while Carl
Okay.
pulls that up, the thing about those yellows too is it makes it impossible for anybody to get into any kind of rhythm. We had one or two little, I'm hesitant to call them long runs, but given the rest of the race, they were longer runs, and those were really fun. I had really good battles with Isaiah and a couple other guys, but it's okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah, we had 24 cautions at Richmond,
okay, so it was a new
and
record.
then
I thought
Martinsville had 24 as well. So yes, Phoenix is now the butt of every joke,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
And it,
strong work.
I think Sam Dyer brought it up and said it pretty well in the Discord. I think it was Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning. Of our second race last season was at Richmond, and we all know how that went. Last season, it was not a pretty race. It was honestly similar in a lot of ways to this one. The ending was maybe a little bit cleaner here at Phoenix, but again, it's part of the growing pains and it's part of driving at a short track. In any kind of league, when you have a lot of cars and some unexperienced guys, I mean, a majority of us are unexperienced in the grand scheme of things. Bad things are going to happen. But I'm showing 98 caution laps out of a total of 180 laps run. So more than half of the laps were under caution.
Gold star, boys. Gold. If we're
That's
gonna do
impressive.
it, let's. Yeah, if we're gonna screw up, let's screw up.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. But at least there's only one way to go from here. It was also a very long race. 175 lap race at Phoenix should not be 2 hours and 18 minutes. But that is what it was due to those cautions. And as Carl, you said earlier, Mason did win. He picked up right where he left off last season and got his first win of season 3. So congratulations, Mason. I would say a dominating race, but we didn't get to really play it out. Yeah, like, and not against anyone that was
The
behind
pace
you,
car
but
dominated the race.
The pace car led the most laps. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
called
the
it before it, and I called it.
Pace car was super fast.
Yeah.
I got sick and tired of seeing his bumper.
The
Well,
only car Mason was behind for the
Another one of
majority
your
the night.
teammates
Whoa.
got tired of seeing someone else's bumper.
Okay. He
But
saw his front bumper for a second, and then he saw his rear bumper towards the end. And then he saw his helmet.
real quick, I'm going to go through the top 10 finishers from Phoenix. So Mason Houseman first. Gray Walker finishes second, qualified second, finished second. Great run by him. Great to see. Atlanta is a tough way to judge new drivers of seeing what their skill level's at. Phoenix gives you a little bit more of an idea, so good to see him running there. Brendan Maddox finishing third after qualifying seventh. Really good run for Brendan. I know he was struggling there at the beginning, but got it all figured out in the end and came home with the top 3. Matthew Catania, I believe is how we figured out to say the last name.
I believe so.
With a 4th place finish, good finish. And Scott Fritz rounds out the top 5. And then you got Johnny Wood Jr. 6th, Adam Buzzio 7th, Richard Wolsifer 8th, Stephen Borbell 9th, and Isaiah Sutherland rounds out the top 10. Where else do we go from this? We can talk about Gavin Rogers qualifying. Did he qualify on the pole? He must have.
He did.
I mean, I would,
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I'd be
Yeah,
shocked if he
Gavin
didn't.
got. Yeah.
So Gavin
Yeah,
qualified
Gavin
on
got
the pole, led the first, I don't know how many laps.
Stage. It was his
Ye-
first
first
stage.
Led the
stage,
whole
yeah.
first stage and then got shuffled back due to pit strategy at the end of that first stage. And then got into an unfortunate incident. I want to say it was around a lap 100.
Yeah, he made his way back up to the front. He was in the top 4 or 5, I believe, because I was running in 5th, I think, when that incident happened. I believe it was him and Scott Fritz that got into it, and just Gavin was super upset, but we kind of went back and looked at it, and I think it's just one of those deals. It wasn't anything really egregious on anybody's part, but still super unfortunate. It happened. It completely took him out of the race. He forgot to have his fast repair on, or there was a problem. He says he had it checked, but it didn't check, or one of those iRacing deals, and had 35 minutes of damage. So it was unfortunately the end of his night.
Yeah, it was definitely heartbreaking to see. It's his
Yeah, it
favorite
was rough.
track, and in a race sponsored by Sundance, for him to go out like that was definitely tough for him to swallow. But yeah, like Adam said, it was an unfortunate thing, but it was just hard racing at the time, and that's what's going to happen in the front of the pack. There was a lot of hard racing all over the track of wrecks, and then I saw we reviewed a lot of the incidents after the race, and the amount of ARCA breaks that we saw was kind of alarming. So I don't want to call any drivers out on that specifically, but it's just, if you see smoke in front of you, even if that yellow flag's not out yet, just get off the gas at the very least. Like, get ready to make a move, slow down, and worst comes to worst, it stays green and you lose a little bit of time, but at least everyone has a clean car still. Oh boy. Well, Mason, you ended up winning. Take us through your race.
I remember first part of the race qualifying happened. I saw Gavin on pole. Instantly, my brain's saying, "Oh no," because I know Gavin's got pace wherever he goes. So race starts. Gray Walker, me and him had a couple of incidents in the practice race, but I talked to him for a little about what can work out, and he did a great job the entire night. So I was very proud to see him at the end finish behind me. Um, first part of the race, first stage, sitting behind Gavin, I don't really have much for him. I'm just trying to learn his line, figure out what he's doing. And then second stage happens. I think like 4 or 5 cars stayed out, and I remember he went to the top, I went to the bottom, and the top just got a horrible start. So I just sent it down in, and then Dustin, I was right behind Dustin, and then Gavin was right behind me coming into it, and then Dustin kind of washed up a little bit, so I stuck it underneath of him, and then I think Dustin played a little bit of a team role and kind of blocked off Gavin there, and then caution came out. Dustin helped out there, and then the unfortunate event of more and more cautions happening, and then Scott Fritz somehow ended up behind me, and then yeah, he incident with Gavin, and then towards the end it was just me trying to figure out how do I start fast every time so I don't have to worry about people passing me, because I knew after like turn 2 or 3 we're most likely going to have a caution.
I'm sorry, I was trying to adjust some audio levels on my end. I was getting some weird feedback. I don't know where to go from there. I apologize.
Well, it's one of those races, man. You hate to really beat the horse. You know what I mean? We had a bad race. I mean, really any storylines we have from it aren't great. We had some drivers get a little heated. I don't know if we're going to get into that on the podcast or not, but
Most definitely.
yeah, Dustin and Isaiah had a run-in that escalated pretty quickly, and unfortunately involved a couple guys that didn't have anything to do with it. But Carl was one of them. Our other teammate Jared, I believe, was also involved in that.
Yep.
Killed his race, but
Missed that by a whisker, and then Jared was right there behind me and just had nowhere
Yeah.
to go.
it's one of those deals, man. I mean, one thing I'd like to say real quick, because it's probably the only highlight I had from the race, was when we were racing. The racing was good. When we had those, like I alluded to earlier, long runs, I had some great battles, and I had a lot of fun. I like Phoenix. It's actually one of my favorite tracks. Maybe not favorite, but it's in my top 5. But with the yellows, you just, I'm not a super aggressive driver, and the only way to really make up spots on Tuesday's race was to be super aggressive on the restarts. So I pretty much, I got up to 3rd or 4th at some point, and then restart after restart kind of chipped away at me. I ended up in 7th and was just happy to be there. Honestly, I didn't pit the entire 3rd stage. I think Mason, did you pit in the 3rd stage?
Yeah, I did. No,
You
no,
did?
no, no, I
Okay.
did. It was Isaiah, Steven, you, and then a couple other stragglers behind you followed, but I just know like the
No, I
bigger
didn't
points
pit.
was you.
A
Or-
majority
I think
of
Gray
us-
stayed up too.
Yeah, I think it was mainly
Yeah.
all 3 stayed out, and then the rest
was only a
pitted
couple
at
of us,
very
yeah.
different times.
Yeah, there was only I think you, me, and Walker. I think we're the only
Yeah.
Yes.
3
That's what it was.
that stayed out. We stayed out the entire 3rd stage, and my logic behind it was exactly what happened to Jared and almost happened to Steven. I kind of assumed the rest of the race was going to go the way the last 100 laps had went, and I thought it would be easier to lose a spot or 2 to guys on tires than it would be to come up through the field and risk that. And that's what happened. I think I restarted in 4th, I think. So I lost 3 spots to some guys on tires, and maybe 1 spot to a guy. I think they all had tires. I know Brendan and Fritz both did.
Did
So
Brandon get tires?
He did earlier on.
yeah,
Oh,
it
okay.
wasn't. He was still on older tires, but they were newer than mine.
Yeah. I think they're about 30 or so laps newer than y'all's.
My fronts were fine. It was my rears. You know what I mean? I just couldn't drive out of it, especially in 1 and 2. I just couldn't drive out of the corner, especially if I got put down low on the restart. I just couldn't drive off the corner like I needed to. I was really good through 3 and 4 the whole race, though. I made pretty much every pass I made was through 3 and 4. Yeah, Brendan just said he got tires super early on the stage. That's what I was thinking too. But so the racing was good when we had it, and unfortunately, a couple guys lost their tempers. You're going to have that in a race like that. It's just inevitable. But yeah, that was pretty much Phoenix. Good job, Mason.
Hate to say it, but good
What?
job.
You
Oh,
know,
Thank you.
the way my season started, I'm glad I finished on the lead lap. I qualified really well. I qualified in eighth, so I was actually really surprised and really happy with that because I knew it was going to be a mess. It's like track position is going to be key. And then I think the first stage went okay. I think some drivers stayed out, and then I got shuffled in the back, and I just couldn't recover. I was either fixing damage or having to take tires or check up for a wreck or fixing more damage. So it was definitely not a great race for me. It was on the lead lap, but I still 0 stage points, 0 bonus points of any kind for me after 2 races. I'm already feeling the pinch towards the chase. Even though we got a drop week, I've had 2 kind of rough weeks in a row, so I'm already thinking long term, and it's not looking good.
You know, one thing. Oh, sorry, Stephen. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna say those stages are even harder to get. I mean, obviously, just mathematically because how many cars we have, but and then there becomes a whole strategy element now of we saw it at the end of stage 1 that there were people that pitted near the end of stage 1 and stayed out, so they're at the beginning of the pack during stage 2. So it's a whole different thing. You have to drive up through so many more guys, and it just adds another layer of a way to get points. And I can't wait to see how it actually plays out in a green flag cycle during a stage 3 at some point this season, hopefully.
Just green flag runs in general right now would be nice.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to allude to too. Is not exactly that, but the fact that there are so many cars. You know, last season, season 1, etc. If you had 2 bad races, Carl, like you for example, especially to open up the season, it was really, really hard to make that back up with 15 to 18, whatever, 20 guys. Because the same 10 guys had good races every single week. So it was super hard to make that up. I moved up, I think, 12 spots, or maybe not, maybe 10 spots from Atlanta through this week. I made up 10 spots, and I didn't finish great in the stages. I finished, I think, 5th, 7th, and then finished the race in 7th. But 30 other guys had bad race, or not 30, but 20 other guys had bad races that were ahead of me. So you're not necessarily out of it. It's a good and a bad thing because you're not necessarily out of it if you have that gap. But if you're the guy up front, it makes it a little more nerve-wracking too because it's easier to lose that lead than it was before. You know, if you got a 30-point lead going in a race, you can come out without the points lead now.
Mhm.
That was probably not going to happen before. So more cars on track has definitely been a challenge for the drivers, but I think we'll get through it. You know what I mean? We have a system in place for that for a reason, so I think we'll get through that. But it does make the points and the strategy, like Steven was mentioning, it makes it a lot more interesting. You're really going to have to think about, do I want stage points here, or do I want to not pass 30 cars when I restart here in stage 3 or stage 2 or whatever it might be? So
And that might vary a lot by what track we go to. If we have a Phoenix situation and there's a wreck every 2 laps, then you might want to try to stay out as long as you can. Or, I mean, Dover is going to be a really interesting situation, and we'll get more into it later. But when you factor in how much tires matter at Dover, and then it's also a very narrow track with nowhere to go when there's a wreck kind of thing, and it happens right in front of you. So I'm sure we will have a wonderful showing at Dover as well. But no, I love how the points make it really exciting now. Like you just said, Adam, 30 points can easily be gone in a week now. A top 10 is considered a very good race now. It was considered a good race last season, but top 10, like you said, you finished 7th this week and you jumped that much in the standings. Like it makes a big difference when someone finishes 30 something and gets a handful of points. But
yeah, and the skill spread is tight. You know what I mean? We got all these new guys, and you never know what that's going to look like. And I still don't think we do to a point. You know, we had Atlanta, where anybody can win in Atlanta. Zach. And then we went to. I'm just kidding, buddy. I love you. And then we went to Phoenix, and we didn't really race. You know what I mean? That was more of a race of attrition than anything else. Who could be the patient the longest and not end up in a bad situation? I'm hopeful for Dover. I hope some of the guys, I'm not going to call anybody out on the podcast. That's not nice. But I hope some of the guys that, we've talked about offline come back with a different approach. You know what I mean? I think the approach to these races for some of the new guys and even some of the guys that have been here, I think that's lending itself to some of this. So I'm going to be optimistic about Dover. Hope everybody gets a nice little break this week and comes back fresh.
Yeah, that's the best we can hope for. But I
It
think
really is.
without further ado, I think we have to get to the meatball of the week.
Oh my
Oh
goodness.
no. Oh no.
Oh, I already know who I'm giving it to.
Carl Pooler. I'm joking.
Oh, not Stan.
Sorry, Carl.
I was mostly an innocent bystander this past week.
Steven, I was just gonna
Mostly.
compliment your fire transition.
Oh, thank you, buddy.
Like literally.
Literally fire.
Literally.
Mason, since you won this week, I want to start with you. You give us your meatball of the week, and I do have Richard's meatball of the week as well. I got it from him to make sure that we had it.
Oh no. I didn't really see what went on. This is gonna sound really scummy to me. I didn't really see what went on in the back. I only know there's like a couple of incidents.
I was so far forward, I didn't get to see anything.
Mhm.
Oh, I just didn't see it all.
Meatball of the week was the pace car.
Mason, if you need to think about it, I am prepared to go.
Yeah, Adam, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Unless Steven or Carl wants to
No,
go first.
please take it in.
I chose you.
Me?
Sorry. Yeah, I choose you. No. I choose you to go.
I did nothing to anybody for 3 hours.
No, I didn't wreck you. No, wait, whoa. I
Okay,
didn't choose
so
you. Wait.
my meatball is going to. I love him, but it's going to Dustin Stallings. I am avidly against intentionally wrecking somebody, especially when it involves other cars. And Dustin gets hot, man. I think I compared him to Ryan Blaney on Tuesday. It's just like a switch. He's the calmest, nicest guy, and then as soon as he gets mad, it's just it's a switch. And the switch went off on Tuesday, and it messed up a lot of guys' nights. And I think it messed up Dustin's night too, in the long run. So, with that being said, yeah, my meatball goes to Mr. Dustin Stallings.
Yeah, and Mason, did you get a chance to think about it, or you want to?
No, I'm looking through the results.
Okay, Carl.
I'm doing random right now.
Carl, take us.
My, this is hilarious because for the second week in the row, it's going to go to Richard. Comes out, him and Johnny are close. Johnny's in front, and he just can't help. He sees that Limitless, and he's like a bull. He sees it and says, I got to go for it, and just runs Johnny over, causes the whole incident. I was actually, and this kind of got me freaking out because next thing I hear Richard going, oh, Johnny, I'm sorry. And I'm looking at my mirror, and I see this incident, and next thing I know, I'm hitting the transition between the apron and the corner of turn 1 and 2, and I'm spinning out too. So yeah, Richard gets it again for wrecking another teammate. Here we go.
It just that runs in the blood of the Limitless drivers, just wrecking
You guys
each other.
gotta get a hashtag, just hashtag Limitless Implosion. Just run that on the bumpers of the car.
It's crazy.
It's brutal.
I put that sticker on my car even though I'm not there anymore.
Oh, jeez.
I helped
Well,
with it.
you know what's crazy, even crazier, is these things happen because we are always racing around each other. I think in Team Limitless, our skill spread is actually really close. Of course, Johnny kind of leads the team with overall talent. Richard would definitely probably take second. Anthony and I are kind of fighting for the bottom spot, but we're always racing around each other. I know I passed Richard once, Richard passed me once. I was around Johnny quite a bit until the end, so it's just the byproduct of racing around each other all the time.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, what y'all do as a team is totally y'all's business, but I think I'm always super conscious of, like, when I have a teammate around me, and I will give as much room as humanly possible, and I will not try to race them side by side if I can prevent it.
Okay, that's one thing, but here is Richard at Phoenix, or I'm on the outside line, and he decides to dive it into one to the inside line, taking it 3 wide. And I don't remember who was in the middle, but the poor guy decided to pull out and play it safe. But here I am, like, Richard, why are you doing that? You know what? He was like, "Oh, I'm on fresh tires." Like, I get that, but I'm to the outside. I'm here.
Well, it's Richard. It doesn't surprise me anytime he does something like that because I absolutely love him as a person, but man, there is not one person that just doors me more frequently than Richard. Like, it's every corner. If he's side by side, I know I'm getting doored.
He has these moments where he just goes 100%, 110% insane. It's not very often, but when he does, he just makes that decision, makes that commitment, which I gotta commend. But it's like, you watch out. There's other people around you, man. You can't just send it like that sometimes.
Richard ended up being the inside meat of a next level sandwich at one point because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think he stuffed it in on Steven going into 3, and Steven and I were already beside each other, and Steven went 3 wide, and I just hooked it right. Like, I got so far out of the groove, it actually, I almost spun myself out, which is stupid, but I just did not want to wreck him, and I had no idea we were 3 wide because entering the corner we weren't. And I think Richard got the wall because of that. I don't think it hurt him, but Steven had a better view than I did.
Yeah, I think that scenario I think was actually Matthew Catania, and he tried, he like got loose off of 2, and I think he just stayed in our line going into 3, and yeah, it was just a tight situation. But there was a time Richard put it on my door in turn 3, or there was a handful of times that happened. Yeah, I could talk about him being aggressive all day, but Mason, back to you. Have you thought of who you want?
I feel bad for giving it to him because I love the guy, but I'm gonna give it to Patrick for
Oh,
the
boy.
fact that he somehow, some
Patrick.
way, I love the guy to death, but he cannot get himself out of incidents. It's either a self spin, it's getting hit by someone, putting himself into spots where he shouldn't be. I mean, I could go all the way back from Atlanta. I told him, "You have no fast repair. Take it easy. Go on the bottom." What does he do? Goes on the top, pushes someone in the corner. Boom! He's gone for the night.
What happened
He
to
just-
Patrick at Phoenix?
He had a couple of self spins. Got into most of like the calamity, like all like the big wrecks he got himself into,
Fair
and
enough.
then he just was gone. by
He
then.
had one incident where he missed his breaking point into 3 and actually got into Dustin and caused a little bit
Yes.
of a ruckus. Yeah, so there was that, and I think he did have the self spin where either he got arc or braked or something else happened. So yeah, he definitely had a rough go early of it on Tuesday night.
And I remember this stat when looking at Sim Racer Hub after the race on Tuesday, and this is not to call out Patrick by any means, but he did, he has raced both races this season. He's checked out of them both very early on, with multiple wrecks in each one, and he leads the league in incidents per mile, at 0.25 incidents per mile, currently, which is an astonishing rate.
That's an insane statistic.
What?
That's
Yeah.
insane.
Per lap
Why do you
or per mile?
why do you
Per
know that?
mile.
I'm so confused how it knows that.
Wow.
though.
Sim
Uh,
Racer
That's actually
Hub
insane.
is-
Well,
Sim Racer Hub's
it's numbers.
wild.
You got to take the amount of miles we've ran divided by the amount,
Yeah.
or miles he ran divided by the number of incidents he's had, and there you go.
It's too much math.
I'm really
No,
proud
it's
of
easy.
myself.
It's actually really easy, just a lot of work.
I'm really proud of myself. I think I'm tied for first in lowest incidents, but I'm not
I
sure.
know you're around there. I didn't look too much into that
Which
because
is-
that doesn't
as-
matter.
Am I there?
astonishing based on Atlanta.
I would like to know if I was there.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look.
Aw.
But
We'll figure it out for you. buddy.
Adam, no, you are not. We have
Oh.
for everyone racing 2 races. Matthew Catania is at the highest with Stephen Borbell at 16.
look at that.
Look
I
at
thought
that.
I was at
Dakota
16.
Bly, our mascot, our great great Dakota Bly, with 17. Mason Houseman, you have 18. And then Gray Walker and Adam Buzzio with 21.
Oh, I thought I had 16.
Top
I must have
five.
looked at it wrong.
Ish. Top 6. I don't know. Whatever it was.
Less incidents than Adam. That's something I'm gonna take to the grave
Well,
now.
you know what?
I mean, you did run up front for the entire Phoenix race.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I got 8
You know,
X in one corner at one point.
Another crazy stat is both Zachary King and Matthew Catania have the best average change of the league. Zachary King his average start is 34th. Okay, his average finish is 8th, so that's an average change of 26 spots. Matthew Catania, average start of 27, average finish of 3rd. His average change is 24 spots
Jeez.
race. These two drivers. In fact, Matthew Catania right now is the only driver in the league with both 2 races with the top 5 finish.
Yep. He has been very consistent to start off the year. And
Yeah, he's quick. too.
Brendan's asking for a stats channel, and I think that's a great idea.
Ooh, I like
Yeah.
it.
I think
I
I'll
like-
let
that's a good
Carl and
idea.
myself be in charge of that, and we'll post random stats that we find interesting every once in a while.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, you guys are definitely more of the stats guys than me. So
We love numbers here. I mean, it paints
Numbers
a
don't
fuller
lie.
picture. They don't
I, deal
lie.
with I have to deal with numbers 9 hours a day. I don't want to do it anymore.
And Brendan, since you asked for a stat channel, I also want to pull up another stat I remember from the other day, and this pertains to you.
Oh, no.
There's one driver that leads the history of Butt Kicker Cup Series and BRB racing in incident points, and that is you, Brendan. So congratulations.
Jeez.
I don't remember the exact number. It was like
That's
300 and something incident points for the history,
Fatality.
Holy crap.
but I think I was second, so I don't have anywhere to talk. But
A+ job, sir.
Well, okay. Incident points also include off tracks such
Yes.
as Coda, Watkins,
and
Glen.
a
So there
third
is
of
that.
all of my incident points in BRB were in that one race at Coda, where I had 100 and something incident points.
Steven, I think you and I are in the same boat on that. I think I had like 96.
Yeah, that was
Or something
It's a
from
little
Coda.
skewed, so we can't take Coda stats into.
I like that. I like that runoff, boys. I like it.
But going back to the meatball of the week, there seems to be a trend, honestly, by looking at this board. There's 2 Richards, there's 2 Patricks, and I'm gonna make it 2 Dustins. As Adam said earlier, like we are against wrecking drivers intentionally because I don't think there's any room for that. We had a good conversation with Dustin about it, and we appreciated him coming to us and actually talking to us about it.
We did.
It's still being, I guess, reviewed at this time. But to go back over the whole incident, I was behind both of them during the whole, I don't know, it was a 10-lap window that everything was happening. Isaiah sent it in hard into turn 1 on Dustin, accidentally clipped into him, got them both loose. They both saved it, and then we soon went under caution after that. And then I saw Dustin get into Isaiah's bumper under caution, obviously showing his displeasure. And I was like, I hope that's where it ends. Unfortunately, that is not where it ended. We were going to the next restart, and I was starting up with Jared. And I just gave him a heads up of, hey, watch out for Dustin and Isaiah. I know they're upset with each other right now, so don't want to get caught up in anything. And I think we had the restart, and Dustin sent it into 1 pretty hard and pushed Isaiah up the track. I think they were 3 or 4 wide there at that point in turns 1 and 2. And I guess Dustin wasn't satisfied with just pushing him up the track, so then in turn 3 also sent it in hard. And don't want to hypothesize or make accusations, but it appeared that Dustin had throttled up after already slowing down and braking super early in the corner, and took out Isaiah and took out another 4 or 5 cars. I think, Carl, you were in that. Jared was in that. I think Zach King was in it, and a couple others. But that's why we don't wreck people intentionally. One of the many reasons, because there's a bunch of others that get involved that have absolutely nothing to do with it, and ruined a lot of guys' races, unfortunately. But yeah,
Steven said he didn't want to have any accusations. I'll make an accusation. Dustin killed that man. Dustin
Well, and-
committed felonious homicide on our racetrack.
You know, and maybe it would have been so bad if they were kind of out in the back and they both took each other out and they're racing for last or whatever. It doesn't bring the whole field, but it also has shades of Noah Gregson at, was that Road America? In the Xfinity series, got upset that he was getting shoved through a couple of corners, wrecked the guy through the grass, and then ended up wrecking another half dozen cars. You know, kind of throwing a hissy fit. It was really, really unfortunate because everyone was already hot tempered. Everyone was already having a hard time trying to get through the race. All the cautions, all the pacing, no racing. Everyone's was really hot under the collar, but Dustin had to take it that extra step, and just it being so far forward of the field and kind of taking matters in his own hands, just unfortunate for everyone, because you don't want to see 4, 5, 6 cars get wrecked because of someone has a hurt feeling. It's just very unfortunate situation overall.
Yeah,
I
I
can
remember
tell you
this
one
one
thing.
time at New Hampshire. So I was
Exactly.
And Brendan, it's not that, like, I understand Isaiah and Dustin have been racing each other very difficult and very tough. Like, that's what it is. That's totally on them of however they want to act to that. But no matter how much you boil over, you can never get to a point of intentionally wrecking someone. I think is the point that we have to get across, and we can't let that slide. As a league and as admins, if we let that slide, then we're gonna have 3 other guys do it next week with no consequence.
world of hurt.
I can tell you one thing though. I was very scared because Dustin was already mad at Isaiah in the team chat. Didn't say anything, like anything egregious. He was like, "God, dang it!" Obviously not dang it, but I can't say that. But and then all of a sudden it got really quiet, and then we do the laps, and all of a sudden caution comes out, and it's still really quiet, and I'm like, Dustin, yeah. I was like, did you hit him? Yeah.
It's never good when the team chat goes quiet.
No.
It's never. It's the
It's
same
so
way in ours.
awkward.
Whenever it's quiet, everyone's like. Like I know when Gavin was upset, Steve and me and
Oh.
Jared were all like,
I never wanted to leave the call quicker. I just want to get out of the awkward situation for a minute.
I was dying on the inside. I was just like, I just want this to end. And then he didn't do his fast repair, and I was like,
Yeah.
When I saw him wreck, there was a piece of me that was happy, but also a piece of me that was like, oh no, 'cause I knew he was gonna be a
Better
little
watch
upset.
yourself.
Okay, when your main competitor wrecks out, of course you're gonna be a little happy. But
I can't
also
say I agree with that.
in the what?
No,
I gotta admit, Steven might be a better person than me here because I'd probably be pretty okay with it myself. I'd feel bad after the fact, but in the moment, I'd be like, yeah.
I don't know. If I win
It's
a
one
race,
less
I
car.
want,
I don't have to pass.
like
I
going
felt
back
bad.
to Homestead in season 1 when Gavin disconnected and then Dustin wrecked out when we were doing pit stops and I ended up winning that
That was
race. I
different.
didn't feel accomplished. Like, oh, my 2 biggest competitors wrecked out. I shouldn't be happy. Like, I want to beat people at their best.
I think a disconnect would bother me more than like an on track kind of deal. Because yeah, I don't know if that's valid or makes sense, but
Sorry, but maybe I'm a little different. I do want to say I do want to race everyone at their best, but right now I'm about really. I'd be willing to almost wreck my mother right now for a win. I'm not gonna lie.
Jeez.
I'll tell-
It is very, very, very tough.
I'll tell you what, man. On Tuesday, if I don't know, I think we had 30 cars. If 29 cars wrecked out and I made 175 laps by myself and won, I'd be thrilled.
Right? It's a win,
Wow.
right? They made mistakes. I survived.
That would have been a great broadcasted race.
Man.
Give him some in-car radio. I'll entertain him.
And Adam goes into one.
I'll get in a fight with myself. I'll get in an argument
Good
about
job.
with myself. Good job.
Buddy behind him.
Oh,
Good
shoot. You know what I
job.
missed? I forgot to do our first Rev Sim Shop random trivia question of the night.
Oh, burn.
So let's quickly
haven't done one of these
transition
yet.
over there. So this is going to be the Rev Sim Shop weekly questions. There is a little bit of a theme this week as well.
I love the throwback TV. It's so good.
Oh, thank you.
Is that from Fallout? It looks like it's from Fallout.
It's
Right?
not an asset directly from Fallout, but it does look like it.
I'm old, so I can only reference old games.
I was
That's
just
not
about to
old.
say that's a TV from your time. My time is.
We had one of those in my basement. Don't talk crap.
I believe it. You should be in a retirement home.
We were also poor. So, now I hope you all feel bad.
I don't at all.
Yeah, I feel really bad.
Oh boy. But this
I-
is the
I'm
Rev
sorry.
Shop random trivia question for week 3 or episode 3. I know I don't have my scoreboard up. Gosh dang it. Never mind. You all know how it works by now. If you don't, you'll catch on. Just answer the question. You're going to have 30 seconds to answer the question. You get it right, you get a point, and there's a season-long tally for a prize at the end of the season for the winner. And Richard's the only one that knows that actual prize right now. Carl didn't
the
ask me
prize?
last week.
What's the prize?
You're not
Am
going
I allowed to
find out.
type an answer in the chat if I know it?
You can, yeah. You're not
I'm
going to
allowed
get
to
points
type?
for
Let's
it.
go.
Wait, yeah, you would.
What?
Yeah, y'all would.
Mason
Sorry,
got so upset.
I was telling
well,
Carl
I
and
just-
Richard
I
that they're
just-
not allowed to play.
That checks out though.
All right, your 30 seconds is going to begin after I read the question and say go. So get ready. And our first question of the night is, which NASCAR star once hosted TV's Saturday Night Live? And your answer choices are Dale Earnhardt Jr., Jeff Gordon, and Jimmy Johnson. And your 30 seconds begins now. Adam, quick on the trigger on that one.
I might have been the only one alive when he did that, so it's probably unfair that I know it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Appreciate it, I guess. I'll still get points for this, right?
Unfortunately.
Oh, that was a really cool background. I saw your.
Those were all good. Whoever
sorry.
made that, I'm assuming Steven, you picked the choices. Those were good choices to pick.
Yes, so Rev sent me the questions and the answer, and then I just built the wrong answers around it. Oh, jeez,
That's what
loud.
I mean. Those are good wrong answers.
Yeah, I figured you have to have high-profile guys. I mean, it's not going to be, no offense, but you're not going to have Ricky Stenhouse Jr. on.
I
Sorry
literally
about that.
remember what he was wearing. I think he had a black leather jacket on when he hosted that episode. I loved Jeff Gordon. so
Welcome
much.
in, Eric.
Hey,
Glad
Eric
you're
Jensen's
here. And Eric, I'm sorry to tell you, but you are wrong this week on the first question. The answer is Jeff Gordon. Did host Saturday Night Live. So it looks like we got a lot of actual answers in this week. Jared, Brendan, Mason, Adam. Well, 2 of them are here, I guess.
Well, it also helps when the person who knows this answer tells you it.
Well, yeah, it's actually kind of perfect that Adam's on this week because there, like I said, there is a theme to this week, and
Oh, I don't think I know the theme. I don't know if this is good or not.
no, you know the theme. It fits with what works for you. Just updating our scoreboard real quick.
If it's old people stuff, I got it.
It is old people stuff. I mean, it is Rev sending me the.
Yeah, in
me
a
the
way,
list.
it's kind of unfair for me and Rev. Well, Rev's not playing, but kind of have an unfair advantage.
I wish we could do something like, so people don't know what you have, like where you do the graphs where it's like Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt Jr. You don't know your answer until you like Steven, you press submit and then it tells you the answer.
What,
So
like,
people can't
playing-
like,
What's that, Kahoot?
yeah, something like that.
Kahoot. Dude,
Wait,
I
who's in
haven't played-
cahoots?
No, Kahoot. It's a board game. I haven't played that in so long.
I've
Maybe I'm
never
thinking
heard
of like
that.
the one that you do in school nowadays.
We didn't have
Back in
those.
my day,
We didn't have those
we used to
fancy
play
internet
Kahoot.
machines back in my day.
Wow. Well, did you ever have like a clicker in classes, like where you had answers for like warm up questions? Or am I showing
No,
my
you know-
age?
I don't know if you guys are gonna know even what I'm talking about, and I don't know the correct terminology for it, but it was like a projector, but it used reflections.
Yeah.
So it was this flat, illuminated panel with transparent notes on it that the teacher would have, and they would draw and use that to beam onto
Mhm.
like the like a pull down screen.
I always called it the overhead or something
Yeah,
like that.
the overhead.
Yeah, you're right. That's what they called it, the
Yeah.
overhead. And it had, like the flat panel where the actual image would be, and then there was an arm with like a reflection light.
A lot of
And
the
it
time
would
it was like math class. I remember always having that.
Yeah, yeah. and
Science class,
they'd have
math
to shut the
class.
lights. I always liked it because they'd shut the lights off, and you could.
Exactly.
Not
It was
pay
like a
attention to
reverse
them.
periscope.
It was, yeah. Mason's like, I don't know what.
Dude,
Mason's
Like,
confused.
did
my
you
brain
guys
my brain
also-
stink. We had projectors, but I don't think the
I don't
ones that
think
you're
they were
talking
these
about.
guys. Yeah, you had actual projectors.
They were on
Yeah,
carts.
you had
You had to
smart
wheel
boards.
them in.
Oh, hold up. There were some on carts, but they were also like the $2,000 one.
Yeah,
ones.
no. I
Brendan
don't
with
think we
another
had a-
great idea. Sorry, guys, but
Ooh,
next
test them on the rule book.
The
There you
next
go.
podcast, so not next week because it will be Thanksgiving, but the week after, I think we'll do the trivia questions over the rule book to see who actually did their homework.
I
No
like
one's
it.
winning.
And Eric, I will,
Everyone's listening.
update the standings after tonight, and I'll post them into probably general or something like that, just to give everyone an idea of where they're standing. I do believe, just by quickly glancing, that you are in the lead. It's very close between you and Brendan, is all I'm going to say. But, yep. And give Jared some credit. Why credit? Why Jared? Did Jared recommend it?
Don't listen
Oh,
to
he
them.
did. I didn't. I missed that one. Oh, well. Jared. Good job.
Good job, buddy.
Good job.
Oh.
A plus. If I had my overhead projector, I would draw you an A and let the whole class see.
Sorry, I just got an email saying that FP1 started for Las Vegas.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that was like
Hamilton
us.
and
That was like-
Russell are 1 and 2.
Oh shoot.
This is a NASCAR podcast, not F1.
We don't
Hey,
talk
this should
about,
be a motorsports podcast, sim racing
Yeah.
podcast. It should qualify.
we don't talk about them cars without fenders.
Exactly. I do want to touch on something that I know is briefly discussed in our admin chat earlier today. I didn't plan on talking about this, but I was just like, you know what? I want to get some feedback from everyone on, Richard brought up was it like a white elephant sort of deal?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
those
it's a
that
really-
make paints.
It's a really good idea.
Yes, he talked to me about it like a week ago, and we completely forgot about it, and then told him to put that message in admin chat. And so the general idea is the people in our league that make paints. There's a good handful of us, and we'd like to do a white elephant of sorts with paints. So you basically just tell us that you want to sign up for it. We'll put all names in a metaphorical basket, and then you'll draw a random name, and you'll get someone that you'll make a paint for, and vice versa. Someone would make it for you. It can be a white elephant or Secret Santa. I don't know how you really want to define it, but then we could all run it for a certain race, whether or not that be the Christmas race, for Christmas or after Christmas, or we can do a completely different race in all.
I think the Christmas
I
one
mean,
would
it-
be really good because it would be a cohesive theme for everybody to kind of make a paint on. We could just use the random number generator website and just give
Yeah.
everybody that wants to participate a number and have it assigned that way or whatever.
What if you don't know how to make paints, but you want to still make a paint for someone?
I don't want Mason to be my Secret Santa.
Yeah.
Wait, hold up. Wait, are we erasing these paints?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
that's the
nothing.
whole
Okay,
idea.
so that's gonna take my entire. I was gonna do Jingle Bells, but something.
So they would have to fit, the paints would have to fit within our rules of they can't be including profanity and
Or
Right.
phallic Christmas trees, Mason.
yeah.
Santa Claus.
Yeah, no. So we'll get some actual a sign up set up and out into Discord sometime within the coming days. Either Richard or I will head that up, I guess, and we'll go from there. And we'll plan to do it. I think that race is December 17th. Yes, the Bristol race.
17th.
The Holler Podcast 250 actually at Bristol. So it'll be a great thing to do there.
Is that finals week?
It might
Oh
be.
yeah, probably.
Oh, that's finals week. Oh, I guess I can't make it to my final. Got a race.
Oh goodness. But
Hey, I'm in the same struggle. Our due date's a little fluctuous right now. The induction date is the 28th, but right now everyone's anticipating between the 18th and the 21st. So
oh man.
we may have a BRB holiday baby coming.
Holiday.
I want
baby.
your car that week to just be your baby's face. Like Corey LaJoy, your baby's
Oh
face.
goodness.
Oh, you know what? If Rev's not here, I want him to make a little onesie, and BRB Baby Crew with her name over there. That would be awesome.
cool.
Oh, I need to hit up Rev. I'll get him later.
You might be sleeping right now.
Have you got? Have you guys chosen a name for your baby?
Yeah. Her
It's
name is gonna be
Mason.
Liana.
It's Mason. Aw, that's so
No.
sweet. That's so sweet. I'm getting a cavity.
Oh god.
And
Anyway.
Well, back to the
I was
important
just gonna
things.
say we're devolving.
We
quickly.
are. We're gonna
This is
go over
feeling
our
like Tuesday
standings
all
real
over
quick.
again.
First, we'll go into team standings. Actually, so after 2 weeks, our team standings shake out like this. Maverick Motorsports leads the bunch of teams with 57 points total. Next Level Motorsports following second. We had a little, believe it or not, Gavin drug us down this week with his
First time.
finish of 30 something.
First time for everything.
Yeah, but no. Next Level Motorsports in second with 53. Meatball Motorsports holding strong with Zach and Josh Anderson in third with 50 points. Full Send Racing, I don't want to say surprised. Maybe that's derogative, but glad to see them in fourth. CFM Esports tied for fourth with 45 as well. Limitless Esports in sixth. Mini implosion, but they rebounded a bit from Atlanta. So with 44 points. Accelerate Racing right there as well, 43. Racers for Christ, 43. Freaky Fast, 41. Showtime, 40. And Andrew, look away, Whiplash Racing with a total of 3 points so far on the season. They did not earn any points last week at Phoenix because none of their drivers participated. So yeah, very, very close team points overall.
You know, if you have a really good race as a team, you can make up 13, 14 points.
Yeah, most definitely. Those averages are, especially if you have the winner too. That extra 5 points, race points for the winner, comes into a big play in the team
Oh,
points.
definitely.
So,
But yeah, Braden is showing up there. 11 teams in the championship, and we hit on that earlier on, where the massive influx of drivers also meant a huge influx of teams, and seeing double-digit teams being able to participate in this championship has been really fun. When we actually get to go racing, I can only imagine what we're going to be able to put on the screen.
Double-digit teams is crazy. I had no anticipation on that being the case this season, so it's great to see. I think teams keep the league going. I think it keeps drivers more involved. But I think there's a number of reasons behind that. I'm not a psychologist, but it's good to see. It's good to see all the teams, and it's good to see the points, as close as they are. I mean, from first, I'd say realistically first all the way back. I mean, oh gosh,
I would
really
say
first
top
all the way
10.
to the top 10 could be flipped. Maybe not flipped, but shaken up quite a bit from one race. So that's super
You're
cool.
missing. I think you're missing one team on there.
can you please tell me who?
Is it? I think HF1.
They do not
forgot the
qualify as one driver.
One driver, yeah.
Oh,
one driver.
shoot. Oh,
yeah,
my
one driver.
So
bad.
these are
Sorry.
all teams with 2 or more drivers. So that makes this
Okay.
even a little bit more impressive that we have 11 teams with 2 or more drivers. And
Yeah,
I
single
think
car teams somehow.
5 or 6 of those teams actually are 4-car
Well,
teams.
1, 2, 3. It might be 5. Oh no, Accelerate. No, they're 4.
Accelerate
might be-
is 3.
Oh, okay, then it is 4, I think.
Because the Maverick
still.
Next Level and Limitless, I know, Full
Full
Send.
Send is 4, and Racers for Christ are also 4, and I believe Showtime
Oh, that's
Racing
right.
is also 4.
So that's 6 right there. That's insane. 6 full teams?
Yep.
That is nuts.
So it's awesome to see. But that is
Yeah, and as the league progresses, I'd like to put more of an emphasis on the team points and try to come with a prize or something for the end of the season. If we continue to grow at this rate, I mean, who knows? But hopefully, maybe next season we can. The team points have been kind of an evolution. I don't think we did it at all. Season 1, season 2, it was pretty basic, and now season 3, it's really kind of found its stride. So maybe next season we can do a little something for whoever manages to lock that in.
it's
Brendan
definitely
said he's
evolved.
still sad. Brendan said he's still sad about losing losing Jared. Actually, Brandon, me and Adam were talking. We're actually going to do a swap driver. I'm swapping out Jared. Jared's going back to you guys. So,
Why?
yep.
No, that
Who's
didn't
coming
happen.
to us?
No, I know it didn't actually happen, but
I'm
Man,
sorry, but in
Mason
that
all
scenario, who's
over
coming to us?
wishy-washy on the teams.
yep.
CFM. I think they do have 4 as well. They do have 4.
Yeah, they do.
They're with Cole, Scott, Matthew, and Matthew.
Oh man, so that's 7.
Yeah.
Wow, that is awesome.
No,
That is
Jared's
just-
been great on Next Level. Love having his energy in the team calls each week.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was kind of a honorary member through season 2. He was our alliance driver, if you will. We miss Jamie. Jamie's a great dude. Jared definitely brings his own. What did Steven just say? His own energy to it. So.
Yeah.
His own personality. He is a man
Very
of
unique.
immense personality.
And then you have like me, Steven, and Gavin, who we're not necessarily quiet on the radio. I wouldn't say any of us are chatterboxes either while we're racing. But Jared, man, Jared gets going and he's going. You know what I mean? He's strap in.
I always felt like I was the one that talked too much in the team chat because I'll just be driving there and I'm just like not focusing, just talking away. And now that we have Jared in there, he took over that role. So it's glad not to be the chatterbox because I swear Adam doesn't say much of anything. If we are green, Adam is not talking.
I'm very quiet. I am. Yeah, Julie says I have like undiagnosed like ADHD, and I think that's true to a point because like when I'm on something, I'm like on it. So
Laser focused for sure.
laser focused.
I can't say the same.
No, you can't.
What do we got here? We got the
We are
standings
on
up.
to our driver standings now.
All right.
So this, take it with a grain of salt. This does not include the drop week that is built into our point standings or our point layout. Probably wait a couple weeks until that one, until I update to the one with the drop race, because it does show a little skewed currently. With only 2 races run, it will only show whatever race you did better in, and it doesn't give you a full view of everything. So for probably the first 4 weeks, I think I did last year, of all 4 races were combined to show the standings, and then starting probably week 5, we'll include the cutoff, so the points will look completely different, but that would be the actual points that we take into consideration. A little confusing, but it will make sense as the season goes on.
I will say too, I posted the drop race standings, and they're not as different as you would think they would be, because I thought they were going to be substantially different, and there are a couple guys that are up and down quite a bit, but like Steven said, he'll get those. We'll start probably going over those, having those be the actual posted points after week 4. It'll probably make a little more sense at that point.
Yeah, it's the weird part of doing it when you have a drop rate. Like, I think having our drop race is a great thing to have for people. Like, this is not our jobs. This is pure fun, and life gets in the way, and you can't make every race. So I think having the drop race is a good thing, but it can get a little confusing points-wise whenever that transitions. But we'll try to ease y'all into it at that time. But currently, for 2 races combined, Mason Hausman is your points leader with 116. Mason, I think you almost had a perfect race at Phoenix. I think you just missed out on a couple points, maybe.
Yeah, I missed the pole
And the
and
stage win.
stage 1.
Yeah, so you had 66 out of, I think, max 68 points. Something like that. But another great race for you, and you got a 12-point lead, which is pretty big. Only 2 races in, it's pretty good. And Matthew Catania in second place, like we said, been very consistent, only driver with 2 top 5s. So great to see him there, a new driver, a rookie. Myself in third, Isaiah Sutherland 4th, Gray Walker 5th, another rookie. Johnny Wood Jr. 6th, Adam Buzzio 7th, Zachary King in 8th, holding on to that chase spot currently. Brendan Maddox 9th, Gavin Rogers surprisingly 10th, Dustin Stallings 11th, and Evan Patinko 12th. Just on the outside looking in at the current moment, and again, take this with a grain of salt. Richard Smith in 13th, Richard Wolsifer 14th, Zachary Maddox 15th, Scott Fritz 16th, Cody Dorsey 17th, 18th Jared Hughes, 19th Zachary Brandvold, and 20th Tony Patton. Once you get from 13th on back, I can pull up on back real quick. It gets really, really tight with everyone up until even up to the 40. Like, these guys are within a couple positions really at the end of the day, like some stage points and then a random finish. Like, it can completely flip you from all the way back here. Carl, are you still here with us?
Oh yeah, I'm here, and I don't like being 27th. I have 2 races under my belt, and I have only 36 points, and I'm feeling the squeeze. Like I said earlier, 0 stage points, 0 bonus points. I have nothing to lean on except really bad finishes these last 2 races, and I'm not expecting to turn around in Dover. It's crazy how this schedule came out, but Phoenix and Dover are arguably 2 of my worst 2 races on the whole service. Like, even between road courses, short courses, long courses, doesn't matter. Phoenix and Dover back to back just are. I knew they were going to be tough, so that's what makes Atlanta such a hard blow for me to start out the season. Is I knew these 2 races were going to be tough, and it is showing up. And I don't have high hopes for Dover, so this is going to hurt.
Well, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, though, as long as you can hold on to at least some sort of decent finish, let one of these races be your drop race if you have to, and you're able to shine where it matters most at tracks that you do well. By no means any of these guys on this screen are out of the chase consideration at all. Because what is it? Let me go back real quick. So 12th, you're sitting there. Yeah, 12th is 57 points. And then you have Robert Moyer in 26th. 14 positions back is only 20 points back of that.
Yeah, it looks bad on paper. It actually doesn't even look bad on paper. If you're just looking at the position, it looks bad. But
You're only 21 points back.
Not even. You have 2 good races, and you're probably knocking back on the door. Especially with the drop race. You know what I mean? This isn't taking into consideration the drop race. So, if you're Patrick Hernandez back there in 40th, I wouldn't worry too much. Just try to put some good races together.
Well, I think I'm a little bit on the opposite. If I had 8 points after 2 races, I would start hitting the panic button. That's just me personally. I mean,
Fair
there's a lot of
enough.
time, 11 races to go, and
Man, 8. I guess 8. God, 2 races with 8 points. That
would
is
be
tough.
tough to swallow.
Because Carl hasn't had exactly great showings. He still has almost 40. So, regardless, though, keep your chins up, boys.
36 points, 21 points back out of a chase spot right now. That's can be gone in a blink of an eye from what we've seen.
That's
Well,
and oh, sorry.
We mentioned it earlier where there's so many drivers showing up that it's so easy to lose a huge, even a small foothold. I was actually surprised by how many drivers showed up to Phoenix. Like, Atlanta wasn't as big of a shock. It's at super speedway field. A lot of drivers have a chance, but we actually had 43 cars show up for Phoenix, and that kind of blew my mind.
No, 33, I think.
Yeah,
38 was the
Oh,
official
was it?
tally.
Oh, 38. Okay,
Oh, there
I
was
knew
that?
it. Yeah,
Really?
there was a
That-
lot.
Yes,
Crazy.
38
Yeah.
according to SimRacer Hub.
You guys
Because
are
I
still a lot
know
of cars.
at
Love
one
you
point I
guys.
was at the back of the pack in 37th, so 38th is definitely huge. But it's you can overcome it, but it is definitely hard to dig yourself out of a hole that's already kind of deep early on.
I'll tell you what, the size of the field and the way the points are, I mean, I don't want to speak for Steven, but I feel like Steven and I have very similar approaches to races sometimes. Not our strategy. Steven's way better at strategy than I am. I'm terrible at it. But as far as the way we race, I think you're going to see, obviously guys like Mason and others who are probably going to win multiple races this season, but you're going to see a lot of guys like me and Steven, because being okay with finishing in 7th or 8th is going to be important this season. And setting yourself up for decent finishes every week is going to be important. If you finish 8th every single race, probably going to make the chase. as long as we don't have some
Definitely.
crazy. You know,
Oh,
what I
yeah,
mean?
big
So
time.
it's now once that chase starts, that's a different mentality and it's a different approach. But for the regular season, I mean, that's and I was trying not to harp, while we were in the race at Phoenix, but like, man, if you're in 15th out of 35, 38 dudes, that's not a bad race, especially if you're one of these guys, you know, outside of the chase right now. Would I have liked to finish better than seventh? Yeah, of course. I don't want to run seventh. That's not my goal. But at the end of the day, if that's kind of the best you're gonna get, it's better than 30th, man. I don't know. That's I think consistency is gonna be really important this season. Um,
Even
Carl,
more
you
so
have-
than it has been.
you have a similar approach too. I would say more so than maybe someone like Richard. That gets
Yeah,
super
it's
excited
definitely
about that pass for 19th. But
that's what really stings about this is I love my consistency, and last season, man, I was the model of
yeah,
consistency.
you were a
I
beacon
felt.
of consistency last season,
A-
more so
and
than
I
me.
Yeah, and I'm just like, what is going on already this season? I've already not had great a start, so I'm really hoping to turn that around, but I think I gotta wait a race. I gotta wait till after Thanksgiving, and a couple of races after that, so I can get in a rhythm and maybe a track that I can stretch my legs out a little bit and find a rhythm. But I think that's where I'm struggling. Is I'm a rhythm driver. I'm a very rhythmatic individual, and
Whoa.
there hasn't been any rhythm to these
Whoa.
last couple of races. So, yes,
Right.
I'm a white guy with rhythm. I can dance.
No, that's
Very
not what
right.
we're rowing about, actually.
No, well, see, I'm trying to divert. You guys are trying to go left. I'm trying to keep it on track here. So I'm trying
That's
to.
not what I'm
to
laughing about.
do-
No, we're
Did
going.
you see the comments?
We're going.
I'm
southeast.
laughing
Oh,
about
I have
Zach's
not watched the comments at all.
Take a
but
look real
here,
quick at what Zachary King said.
We're going southeast.
oh, Brendan, that's just rude. Okay, I'm done.
Brendan.
No, Zachary
No,
King
no.
has said, I've
Zachary
won
King.
more than a quarter of the people on the podcast.
Oh,
That's what I
Ouch.
was woeing.
son
You,
of a.
you,
Well,
you calling yourself rhythmatic was a very close second woe. But like, you're already having a kid,
Well-
man. We get it. I love the podcast.
right,
I love
I'm
the
done.
podcast so much.
How'd you
Carl,
like it?
quit.
Either way, I am disappointed
your
in my
camera off.
performance so far, and I would like to get it turned around.
I have never wanted someone else to win a race more than a team, or like besides a teammate or myself, of course, than you, Carl. I think you will be very emotional that day, and I want it to happen this season. Unfortunately, I
too,
think you're
dude.
seeing what I had at the beginning of last season. You're getting a little bit of that case of just getting involved in everything. Everything's happening around you, and you can't really do much about it. And hopefully
Oh.
that funk gets out.
I already know. I'm gonna cry. It's 100%. I'm gonna cry.
I hope you
Carl,
do
I'm
it.
just, I know it.
If he makes it feel better, I don't think a single. Well, Steven, I guess maybe you, hasn't had something happen to them. Like Atlanta was really bad for me. I got caught up in. I don't even know how many wrecks I actually ended up in Atlanta, but by the end of it, I just had to drive around at the back to, try to salvage a race, and not end up 43rd. Zach's comment. Oh man.
Knock on wood.
That really got me.
I
That was funny.
I thankfully have not been hexed in the same way that I was last season so far. Like I said, knock on wood. Atlanta was very clean for me. I was with Gavin a lot of the time, and we were able to avoid most of everything, of Richard wrecking Johnny in front of us, and a lot of other nonsense that happened. And in Phoenix, I got into a little bit of stuff, but just because I pitted and went back to the field, it was expected, but it wasn't anything terrible. But it's bound to happen, especially when you have 40 guys on the track. Like, you're gonna get into something. You can't stay out of it unless you change up your strategy based off of that theory of that there are 40 guys, and if you're staying up near the front, you're gonna be involved in less. So I think that's a lot of what my mentality is, to qualify good and stay up there as long as I can.
That's a good point. I had said something during the race. You know, I'm typically not a very strong qualifier. I'm just not good at it. But I qualified fifth, I think, on Tuesday, and I just stayed there. You know what I mean? I think the lowest I fell was, I think I was excluding. No, I guess we did, Steven. We did end up kind of far back after stage one, didn't we? Because didn't quite a few guys stay out or take two or
Yeah,
something?
we were
I
right
think we
around
were back.
10th. It wasn't that far back.
What I say, yeah. So I don't. If we were outside of the top 12 the whole night, myself at least, that was probably about as far back as I got. But that was the whole idea behind staying out in stage three. Was I'm up here now. Like yeah, as soon as I knew we could make it on fuel, I was like, I'm just, whatever happens, happens. I'm not going back there because of pitting. So
Yeah, and I think
Brendan's dyslexic. That's fine.
that's where this strategy comes into now, and the strategy is completely different this season than it was in seasons previous.
Yeah.
Because of the numbers, and
Well, and maybe it's not even strategy. And I've done a lot of introspection. I'm not gonna lie, and it kind of makes me wonder. And Adam hit on it earlier, how aggressive you had to be at Phoenix. And I'm not that type of driver. There's no way I'm going to be able to push it. I definitely want to sit back and let everyone else make the mistake. But with this size of field, it also comes into play. Like, if something happens in front of you, the chance of it involving you is going to be greater because there is more traffic on the track. And it just makes it that much more difficult to avoid those incidents on track. So you've got to find a happy medium. You got to know when to attack. You got to either defend or make those passes. But at the same time, if we get to those green flag runs, can you save tire? And I think everyone's trying to figure each other out now how this is going to evolve, and it's going to be a huge test moving forward.
I think it's just going to change a lot week to week. I don't think what strategy worked in Phoenix necessarily is going to work at Dover. I don't think what works at Dover is going to work at You know what I mean? It just depends.
completely
Not even
different.
so much on the racetrack, but on
It's
just
also car
the
count.
the flow of the race, the car count, things like that. Because I mean, if we didn't have whatever it was, 28 yellows or whatever it ended up being at Phoenix, I mean, that would have shook out a lot. I wouldn't have finished seventh if I stayed out on tires. That's for sure. Because even with the multiple yellows, you know, a couple guys still got up there. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how everybody approaches these races. Like I said, I am hopeful for Dover and going forward that we sort this out, and I'm confident that we will. So
I like to hear that your confidence because I don't want to be the pessimistic guy. I feel like usually I'm the optimist, but Dover is a difficult track when you throw 40 guys on it. And that can transition right into us talking about Dover actually. So next week we do have off, and then the following week we are back. What is that? That would be December 3rd. December 3rd, we are back at Dover for the Ascendance Trucks 175. Bang,
Yes, sir.
look at that. But no, Dover, last time we went there, Adam, I remember you won. It ate tires like nothing else. If you went hard for 5 laps, you were going to lose all of that time that you just pushed for. And then a whole nother thing is, I don't think we had many cautions. We ran really long last time we were there, but we only had 15 guys or so, give or
Right.
take.
yeah, I actually won. Well, I was up front for most of the race, but I won because of fuel mileage at the end. Because I ran out of fuel at coming out of 4. I ran out of fuel. Dover, man, tires are rough. If you can figure out, so I don't know what's changed on iRacing since we raced over last time, but for whatever reason, I had a little something figured out that everybody else didn't, because I was able to run, it seemed like harder, and not fall off. I don't know what I was doing different. I never did quite figure it out. But I think,
packs.
right? Well, that was the crazy thing, is Gavin was in that race, and I thought for sure, you know, whenever Gavin's in a race, I kind of chalk it up to like, maybe second,
But probably
but
third.
but probably third. But yeah, Dover, man, you know, Dover's unique because some tracks chew up the rears more so than the fronts, or vice versa. Dover chews up everything. Like, you run hard for 5 or 6 laps, your right front's going to be, it might not be decimated in terms of percentage, but it's going to be really hot, and those rears wear out. So then you lose grip on corner exit, and you lose that turn in on corner entry. And I love the track though. Dover's, as far as a short concrete track, man, it's the exact opposite of Bristol. I hate Bristol, but I love Dover.
Which is hilarious because it's literally Dover, but twice as big. Or twice as
Dude,
small,
like-
I guess, Bristol.
I don't know. I feel like Dover is so much more technical than Bristol is, but maybe that's because I don't know how to drive Bristol. So I don't know.
That's fair. I mean, they both will penalize you if you overdrive the tires, both being Bristol and Dover. You do
Yeah.
have to drive them carefully. But Dover is, what did we said something in the team chat last race. I think it was Phoenix is an inverse Dover, as Dover is known as a self-cleaning racetrack. It's very tight and it's very well banked all the way around, to where if there is an incident, it's usually just going to gradually slide down the track. Whereas Phoenix felt the opposite. If there was something going on in the apron, it was all going to come back up onto the track.
Every single yellow. I
Yes.
mean, somebody could wreck in the dog leg on the inside wall, and it still somehow wrecked 8 dudes on the high side. So
So I'm curious to see how that's going to work out because, as I said earlier, Dover, when an incident happens, it all happens really fast because there's nowhere to go. The apron is a car length at max the whole way around the track, and you can't really go anywhere, and you have to slow down. And then we have the whole other thing of the amount of ARCA brakes that we had at Phoenix when it's a very wide track and you can move all over the place. We're probably going to see some similar stuff at Dover, and might ruin some guys' races early on, which I'm concerned of.
Dover's one of those tracks too. Even if you see a wreck ahead of you, if you're mid corner, there might not be anything you can do about it because you're moving at a pretty good rate of speed, and it's not one of those racetracks where you can just crank on the wheel and get out of the way or slam on the brakes. So hopefully self-cleaning works the way it's supposed to, and people are a little bit more careful, but only time will tell.
Well, and Dover's one of those tracks. The corners are so long, they're so banked, they're so wide. You feel like you're turning forever in Dover. In my opinion, you really have to feather that throttle and kind of manipulate the rear tires through the both ends of the track. But you're also trying to carry that momentum, and if something does happen in front of you, you guys have said it, there's nowhere to go. You're going to end up in it, and it is a very narrow racetrack. There is wall, and then there's wall. Nothing but asphalt. There's no grass. There's nothing, and it gets very tight. 3-wide racing is very tight and typically results in some type of casualty. That outside wall does not take any prisoners, so if you get up there, you're gonna bend or break something. So trying to drive smart at Dover is going to be paramount to a successful race.
Patience at Dover will pay off if we have longer green runs. You might get blown by, on a restart or whatever, but if that guy keeps pushing and you're smart about it, 10 or 15 laps from then, you're gonna pass that guy again. I remember that was kind of a theme in last season's race, was a lot of comers and goers up front. Tire management super important, being patient super important. So we're gonna just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, just to echo that, I don't think that could be said any better. It's hard to make people want to be patient because everyone wants to get to the front, but you're gonna see it. If you don't be patient, you're gonna struggle. And those people that do have the patience, your patience is going to be rewarded, most likely. I mean, I can't guarantee that you won't be caught up in anything. Things happen, but that's why we race. But without further ado, we'll do our prediction for Dover, and then we'll move on to our second Rev question of the evening. So give me a second here. Let me change my screens around. And Mason, since you won again last week and you are our true guest, please tell me who is going to win Dover in 2 weeks' time.
Oh my. Gonna have. Wow, this is gonna be hard because I would choose Dustin, but I'm still trying to get that figured out yet. I'm probably this is a oh, wow. I'm gonna go with Gianni. I think Johnny's a good pick for this track. He does very good on the tire saving part of these types of tracks. Yeah, I would say Johnny. I would also like to say Isaiah, but I'll stick with Johnny on this one.
All right, very well, very well. And Adam, since you are our perennial guest,
Sort of guessed. I'm gonna go with Walker.
interesting.
I know we've only had 2 races, and one was a super speedway, but I watched him in practice too, because he did practice at Phoenix, and he's gonna be tough for our guys up front, guys like Mason, guys like Johnny, who are pretty much always up front last season. I think he's gonna be a contender. Now it's kind of a blind pick because we only have a 2 race sample from him, but based on what I saw at Phoenix, he's fast. He seems to be clean. He seems like a clean driver for the most part, from what I saw. So I'm gonna go with Walker, and I'll either look like a genius or an idiot. So we'll see.
You
when it
won't
comes
look
to
like that big of an idiot, I promise.
I like that
Hey,
pick because
I
he's
will
he's
remind
super
everyone I
fast.
put Walker in my chase this season.
Well,
There
you
you
look
go.
like a genius so far. Let's hope that doesn't turn around. But Walker,
I would say,
if you get jinxed, you can blame Carl and Adam.
I would say I like that pick
Everybody
'cause,
blames me for everything anyway. It's fine.
Go ahead,
he's,
Mason.
he's
we get
super.
Can go.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You guys have more important stuff to say. Honestly, I'm just kind of just going off of what Adam said. He's super fast, and he's still learning. So that's kind of scary that's scary for me, honestly, because he's already got this pace, but he's still learning. Because I think me and him talked about it after the practice race. I remember I was like, do you know how to look through your windows? Because I know he turned down into me, and he was like, oh, I'm still trying to figure it out just a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay. And then now I'm thinking like, oh, he's still trying to figure it out. So that means he's still learning. I'm like, oh no, that means he's gonna be fast here once he gets everything figured out.
Yeah, he's definitely impressed so far, and Carl saw it, I guess, before anyone else did. So we're gonna call Carl the Wizard thus far into the season. But
Good job, Carl.
Genius.
I'm gonna go ahead and put down Richards real quick, just because we're in the sport of it, or I guess just good sportsmanship that we're doing this season. We're not picking the same guys, so we each have to have a different one. And since Richard only gave me one option, I'm gonna let him go first, even though he shouldn't be, because he's not here. But he picked Adam Buzzio.
Hey, that's me.
That is you.
That's so sweet. I'm getting a cavity.
Not that line again.
The chat seems to. A couple guys in chat seem. You guys are gonna be so disappointed. I'm sorry.
I mean, it is one of your better tracks, Adam. I'd say there and Darlington, especially, are 2 of your better tracks. So, and apparently Richard agrees. Like we said, you won there last time.
It's so weird too because I wouldn't consider myself what I would consider like a technically proficient driver, but I seem to excel at the tracks that are like Dover, Darlington, Gateway. I don't know. I don't get it, but I'm not mad at it.
Chicagoland,
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Carl?
No, you should put on your Kyle Larson paint scheme, just for a one-off race. Because last time you put on your Kyle Larson paint scheme, you instantly won.
That was silly, by the way. I had made that paint like at the beginning of that season. I was like, oh, I'll run it this week, and immediately won. So maybe I will.
Do it again.
Carl, who are you thinking for Dover?
You know what sucks about this whole thing is Richard isn't even here and he's wrecking my night. I swear.
Carl was gonna pick me too.
I think all 3
I
of us were
seriously-
going to pick
yes,
you.
Adam, I was 100% gonna pick you. You have the consistency. You have the brain for this type of track. Your strategy is kind of on point. You're really precise here. You know how to save. I think you check all the boxes here. This makes it really, really difficult.
And you guys are gonna make me blush. Jeez.
I think I'm going to put Mason down there as my winner here. Mason thrives off momentum, and once he starts winning, it is hard to get him to stop. And Mason, I think you have another good shot here at Dover this in the next couple of weeks.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to. I think I've raced here 3 times, and every single time I have finished below 20th or I've wrecked out.
Well,
So-
you could have told me that earlier. That's great. Awesome.
No, no,
Thanks,
no.
guy.
I appreciate the pick. You know, I like being picked both weeks. But I'm so sorry. I'm just gonna say sorry now.
I keep telling myself I need to stop making myself pick last, because then it just, not that it gives me the scraps per se of what to pick, but I mean the 2 favorites are usually gone when it comes around to me.
Steven's like, I only have 41 guys to pick from now.
Yeah, exactly. And well, yeah, and I can't pick Gavin, so it's like I'm really limited here. But I think I'm gonna go with Johnny Wood Jr. Just
I
on
chose him.
the facet of, he runs really good at mile and a halfs. I know Dover is not a mile and a half. He runs good everywhere. That's for sure. But mile and a half is on another level. Dover drives like a mile and a half for a mile track. If
I was
that
just gonna
makes
say
any
that.
sense. Yeah.
It does. I was going to say the same thing. For a shorter track, Dover drives like a fast track.
Right.
So
I think it would end up helping him there. And Johnny is usually really good at balancing when to be aggressive and when to just take it easy. There was a time, I don't know if it was after the wreck he had with Richard last week, but we were running around each other, and he didn't try to push in a situation where I expected him to. He was very, very gentle and very friendly about letting the position go, I guess. And I hadn't seen that out of him before. He usually defends every position pretty well. And I think that balance and patience would pay off for him.
that's a good pick.
I mean, again, when we have 44 guys, we have a very solid, I would say, 15 guys that I can see winning almost any race. Not to say anyone can't, but I would say at least 15 could win any race.
Yeah, that's honestly that's fair. Like I mentioned earlier, the skill gap in our league, I would say there's only including Gavin, maybe 3 or 4 guys that are just really kind of on that next level of speed consistently. I am not one of those guys. But there's so many variables with the bigger field and everything that can happen with that. It's not as clear cut as it used to be. Like Steven just said, I mean, I would say there might be even more, maybe even 20 guys that could literally win anywhere. If that's, everybody has that one track they like a little bit more for whatever reason. If luck goes their way or goes the opposite way for someone that they're competing with up front, you just don't know. So
Yeah.
I could say a shout on someone else. Like, is it Matthew Catania?
Tanya.
Tanya?
Yeah, he's been great.
I mean, he's very
Yeah.
consistent. I mean, Atlanta, he showed he has speed with super speedways. Phoenix, he shows he has speed with getting his way back up there to the front. I mean, I don't know. I could
think-
see him winning as well.
I think Catania, and this isn't to whatever, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus or anything, but I think the thing that's going to hold back guys like Catania, Selby, those guys, and others, to be clear, is just the aggression level. I raced around both of them quite a bit on Tuesday, and it's, at Phoenix, it's one of those tracks you can throw it in a corner and kind of disregard some people, and you're kind of probably going to be okay, depending, just because there's so much room. There's so much room for guys to get out of the way or back out of it and things like that. If you're throwing stuff in it at Dover or tracks like Dover, it's probably not going to go very well for you. So I think Catania's definitely quick. So is Selby, for that matter. But yeah, we're just gonna have to be careful on that kind of stuff. Guys also aren't gonna put up with it every week after week. You know what I mean? If it's one thing to get doored a couple times at Phoenix, it's another thing to have the same thing happen every week. So that.
And I just wanted to address some of the chat comments we've been receiving lately regarding the whole Dustin and Isaiah incident from Phoenix. As admins, we do not make calls based off of someone asking us to make a call.
That's true.
We review things completely out of reach from everyone, and we make our decisions on our own. We don't care if someone asked for someone to be suspended or didn't come to us at all. We're going to review any incident and anything that we determine to be intentional or whatever the case is. We're going to have a certain level that we're going to review it to, and at the end of the day, we don't have an appetite for intentional wrecking. We have to nip that in the bud immediately so it doesn't linger on. Doesn't matter if someone has a problem with the driver or not. It could be a freak accident. We do it completely on our own and without a third party involved.
I'm glad Steven brought that up, because I feel like a lot of the times when penalties are handed down, guys, their first reaction is who went and complained, or who did this or who did that. And 95% of the time, it has nothing to do with the person you were involved in a wreck with. You know, we do our own post-race reviews, we have our own conversations, and we all have eyeballs. You know what I mean? We don't necessarily need other drivers to come to us and say, hey, this is an issue. People do, and, you know, obviously we'll review things if by request and things like that, if someone wants to file a protest and things like that. But as far as a penalty being handed down, especially a serious penalty, which by serious I mean anything more than an EOL, you know, so if you're gonna be parked for a race, or if you're gonna be forced to start from the pits in a race, or something, anything more than, you know, your standard EOL or firm finger wag, all those decisions are made by the admins independently of anybody communicating with us about feelings. If we suspended every driver that hurt someone's feelings, we wouldn't have anybody on the racetrack. So I'm glad Steven brought that up. And that's part of the job. You know what I mean? There's lots of not fun parts of being an admin in a league. This is one of the least fun parts. But at the end of the day, we have to, you know, the reason our league has been successful and is at the point it's at is because we've put rules in place, and those rules help. The only reason those rules are there, the only reason, is to help keep the integrity of the league and make it a place people want to come back to. And if we divulge from that, or if we start, Steven and Carl can both attest to this, it takes one thing and it can kill a league. You let one thing go, or you look the other way one time, and suddenly you have this giant disaster and you have no idea how it happened. It might seem dramatic, but at the end of the day, we have 40 other guys out there that we have to think about and make decisions for. So it's kind of the behind the scenes on that.
Yeah, and to jump on that, integrity is the most important thing I think we have to latch on to, because we question NASCAR's integrity at times on some rulings that they make.
All the time.
And we don't want to be like that. We want to be as transparent as possible and try to be as honest and transparent and have integrity. It's tough from time to time making calls, and I'm not going to say that we all are involved in all the calls. If there's a certain call that is against an admin, they are out of the discussion. They are not involved because they have a bias, obviously.
Happens more than you think.
Sorry. But no, I think we do a really good job of trying to limit any bias or favoritism. However, we do want to be held accountable, and if you think that there is some bias or favoritism, please let us know, and we'd love to talk about it. We'd love to actually sit down and discuss it with you. Like, again, we're all for transparency. We want the most fair decision-making possible, and thank goodness we have Rev as race control, because he is the most unbiased person imaginable.
Rev dislikes us just as much as you guys do.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that was one of the situations, sorry, Mason, where it was difficult, and it's been difficult up to this point, and things have been a little slower than usual, is because Rev wasn't there as our race control. Rev has some computer issues he's currently trying to iron out, but he was not available there. So unfortunately, we didn't have any eyes in the sky. We were only able to judge events on what we could see, And then still, even post race, we can't catch everything. We're looking at some of the major events that brought out cautions, multi-car crashes, stuff like that, and that's a lot of what are in people's minds, and so it gets even more difficult to go through some of this stuff. And I think, like you guys said, we don't want to be NASCAR and rush into something. We want to be thorough. We want to make sure we examine everything, get multiple opinions, multiple views on the situation, and I think that's exactly what we're looking into and doing. And I think that just means that's how much integrity we do want to display and be that transparent, is saying, hey, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we're attempting to do from all angles.
One thing I am proud of though is we've went 3 seasons now, and I can't recall at any time anybody making the comment like, "Oh, admin biasy," that like, or I can't recall anybody ever saying anything like that.
Not yet. We still
Not
got
yet.
time.
Give it time.
I-
It'll happen, I'm sure. But
I think there was. Oops, sorry.
No, good.
that's okay. Well, Mason, you'd actually be kind of a good person to ask because you were kind of behind the scenes in the first 2 seasons, and now you're not so behind the scenes. So I mean, you could probably attest to the conversations that go on and things like that. Like we do go out of our way to try to not, at any point have
Yeah.
any bias or anything like that.
I've when you guys are not around, I've heard some drivers talk about like, oh, they're on the admin team, they can get away with this. Oh, they're on the admin team, they can get away with this. But most of the time, it all resolves to the point where we're just all people on the end of the day, and sometimes people make mistakes, and even if those mistakes kind of don't go to plan, every time they complain about it, I just tell them to go and ask them. You guys are very easy to talk to. I mean, you can message them. It might take you a second. Don't expect an immediate response because everybody's got something they have going on. You guys all have lives, not here. And, even though you guys should be wired in at all times.
Yeah, I don't have much
But-
of a life, honestly.
I know people even with Rev, I know people get upset with Rev about his calls. In the end of the day, he does such a great job, and he does it just for the fun of it. He just wants to give us a good league. He wants to make sure that we all are abiding by the rules, but also having fun while doing it. So I think, that's why we love Rev. Every time he gives you a penalty, especially with me, he goes, "I love you, but I gotta give it to you."
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, that's fair.
We've all had that talk with Rev.
Some of
He'll
us
use-
multiples.
He'll Steven. But no,
That's
we
my point.
we it's just part of the gig, you know what I mean? And it's everybody knows the rules when they join the league, or at least they should. I know not everybody reads that rule book, but I think we're pretty clear. I think we do a good job at making the main points of our league clear to everybody, regardless if you've read the rule book or not. So we'll do that, and there. Spoiler alert: there will be penalties. I don't know what they're going to be yet, but they'll be assessed and carried out, and we'll move on from it. You know what I mean? And then it is what it is. Typically the penalties do their job. So, hopefully we won't be revisiting this or any of the or whatever that shakes out at. Hopefully we won't have to revisit any of it, and that'll be the end of it.
Yep. And I've been in the league, and Adam and Carl, I think y'all as well, that there was a mentality of boys have at it, good old NASCAR boys have at it, and self-police yourself, and that does not work. No,
It doesn't work.
because
doesn't
it's
work.
not our full-time jobs. We're not going to show up each week, no matter what the outcome is. Like, at the end of the day, we're all here to have fun and be treated fairly, I think, is a lot of it.
Yes.
And you don't want to be treated unfairly, and then you just like, well, I don't need to show up next week. So we have those rules in place for the benefit of the community and the league, and I think incidents like that bring us a little bit closer together, honestly, from time to time. Oh my goodness, I caught it.
Is that your mic?
No, it was actually a glass.
Good grab.
Thank
Of
you.
what? Glass of what?
Of
Empty,
Coke,
I think.
Of Coke Zero.
Oh, that would have been all bad.
But no.
Like Colombian Coke?
Oh my gosh, Mason.
Sorry.
But we can move on
Sorry.
from that, and we can move into our Rev Sim Shop trivia question number 2 of the evening. Again, boom, boom. This one, I think this one's way too easy, but we shall see.
I'm so sorry. Excuse me.
You should be.
Boom. All right, so this was our last question, and you will have 30 seconds again to answer once I say go after reading the question. So question number 2 for the Rev Sim Shop random trivia question of the week is... Doesn't want to work for me. There it is. How many cup championships does Jeff Gordon have? And your 30 seconds begins now.
Guys, just so you know, there is a delay from the stream to what the guys are seeing because I got it up on YouTube, so I'm trying to wait. 'cause I
Oh,
know the
okay.
answer.
How bad is
But
that
I got-
delay?
3 or
I'm
4
still waiting.
seconds.
Okay.
It still
that's
says
not-
question 1. There it is. And now I'm answering.
There it is. How it is there.
All right, 30 seconds now.
Yeah, it seems like it's probably about a 10-second delay, Steven.
Oh,
So
yeah.
Maybe.
Keep that in mind.
Isaiah, I see Isaiah up in the chat. He's my fellow Jeff Gordon junkie, so I'm confident in his answer as
This
well.
one is probably the easiest question we'll have all season.
I'm pretty sure the answer's 11.
Well, Mason's fired.
Ah. You know, I've been fired once already. I don't want
Dang
to be
it,
fired.
Mason, you didn't even have a job.
I had a job for a second. It was personal relations. Now it's gone.
Shoot. The last 2 messages I saw come through from Brendan say Colombian Bam Bam, and man, I must be
Yeah,
on
we're
a
talking about the
delay.
Coke Zero.
It's Colombian Coke Zero.
Goodness gracious. So I'm just tallying up the points real quick. I think we all know the answer. I think everyone got it. Right.
Yeah, that one was pretty easy.
Jared, Isaiah. Let's see, Brendan. Just want to make sure everyone accounted for.
It's funny because I don't even know Isaiah that well, but as soon as I got that autograph and met him, the first person I thought about in the Discord was Isaiah. I was
I'm
like,
offended.
this dude's gonna freak out. Well, Steven, it goes without saying, but
I'm offended.
goes
It goes without saying that I'm offended. But, alright, so yes. And the answer is obviously 4 championships. I think Isaiah said he should have 6 technically in the old format. I think I've seen somewhere he would have 7 as well. And like, I
It's-
don't.
I think you're right. I think if you go strictly off the Winston Cup points, I think it's 7.
Yeah, but we can't just go off of that. Doesn't make him any more or less a champion. He's still obviously a legend in everyone's book, no matter what you think of him.
He's the best there ever was.
That might be a little
I love that
aggressive, but man.
It might be a little. I like the word aggressive to be used there. That's good.
Danica Patrick was.
And Mason has been removed from the podcast.
Johnny got fired and removed from the podcast in like.
Dude, I'm
30
just having a
seconds.
really bad. I'm having a really bad year already.
Isaiah, just so you
All-
know, if you didn't, Steven is also a huge Jeff Gordon fan. So there's a little trifecta of us in here.
Oh, yeah, all my stuff's in my closet. I can't bring it out. The wife won't let me decorate the room anymore.
I was gonna say you guys can't really make it out, but there's a lot of 1/24th scale diecasts on this cube shelf, and they're 95% Jeff Gordon. So
You see all this empty space. I'm
That's
working
just-
on
That's
it.
all your
That's
Jeff
just-
Gordon memorabilia.
that's
I'm
just more room.
working on it.
That's just more room for activity. Build a bunk bed.
No, actually, that's only like 2 feet away from the back of my
Doesn't
chair.
matter. Build a bunk bed.
Build a bunk bed. That's in the other room on the other side.
As a-
Brendan, that is the most accurate thing I've ever heard. I remember where I was that incident. I was at the dinner table with my family, and he wrecked at Vegas. He was battling with Matt Kenseth, and that was the hardest hit I'd ever seen. And oh man, he was not the
They
same.
still talk about that hit, kind of changing the trajectory of his career. Because he was
It's so
just
sad.
never. It just seemed like he was never quite right after it. I know he hurt his back in that. That wreck was nasty.
Yeah, a terrible angle of the wall. But that's what the race cars do. They find the worst places to wreck.
Jeff Gordon was known for that. Like if there was a place where there wasn't a safer barrier, Jeff Gordon would find it with his face.
You remember that it was, I want to say it was in the mid to late 2000s, he wrecked at Pocono before they switched over to the Car of Tomorrow. And I think he like a rotor broke or he just lost brakes and whatever, and went driver's side into turn 1 into Pocono. Oh, that was nasty too. Like
Yeah, that's
a bunch of them.
that's the wreck when he gets out of the car and you can't tell if he's trying to check his brakes and what failed or if he's like hunched over in pain. My guess is he was hunched over in pain and made it look like he was looking at his brakes. But drivers were different back then. You know what I mean? If that was a hit today, you probably wouldn't see him in a car for a week or two. Things were just different back then, though.
They were. And Zachary Maddox says King is asking in Discord what BRB stands for. Adam?
I'm surprised nobody figured. Like I
I thought it would be pretty obvious.
I've got it
Yeah.
figured out.
What is
I
it,
figured
Mason?
it out. I'm pretty sure it's either goes Buzzio, Richard Borbell, or it's like Borbeau, Richard Buzzio.
Oh, incorrect. It's Buzzio, Rogers, Borbell,
Dang it!
and no particular order.
Well,
didn't wanna
there
do
is a
completely
slight particular
wrong.
order just because when we were creating this, all the three of us, Adam, me, and Gavin, none of us wanted, or me nor Gavin wanted the majority. So we were like, Adam's the
They
old guy, like let him have the responsibility. He gets 34%, we'll get 33 each.
They made that very clear. I think it had a little bit to do with me running Wicked, but yeah,
That
you
and
guys were
Sidewinder.
definitely, yeah, you guys were definitely like, that's okay, you do it. And I was kind of like, that's the opposite of what I planned for, but I accept it. So
You know what? Rogers
yeah.
makes so much more sense because Richard is not a last name.
Julie
Richard's
thought it
awesome.
stood for. My wife legitimately had no idea either. She asked me like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, I know we've had this conversation, but
I'm sure my wife doesn't know either. I think only the admin team really know.
Oh,
that
I
been there
don't-
from the beginning.
speaking of your wife, I'm not going to spoil it, but you're going to get a super cool Christmas present.
Oh Lord, we already got a super cool Christmas present. I want to shout out actually my sister real quick.
Sister shout out.
It's Adam Buzzio toenail clippings.
I got this in the
I-
mail from my
Sorry.
sister today, and I grew up with NSYNC, and I was a huge NSYNC fan. So she
That's
sent us the
fantastic.
NSYNC Christmas final.
Is that the Christmas album?
It is the Christmas
That's awesome.
That's so good, dude.
final. I would always sing it when I was a kid. So yeah, just give her a quick shout out. Really thank you.
Yeah, Addison
That's
messaged
awesome.
me today. Addison messaged me today in Discord and asked me for something, and I was like,
Uh-oh.
can do. I can help.
Help. Oh.
Oh,
Oh goodness, I can't wait.
I'm gonna show up on your doorstep with a bow. It's gonna
Honestly,
be weird.
that would be fine with me.
In a
It's gonna be weird.
speedo.
Even better.
Whoa!
That says BRB on the ass of it. Yep.
There you go.
Bodacious,
Carl.
rambunctious boys, butt kicker cup series.
Yeah, I
That's
think
probably one of the
people
better
thought
ones.
"Be Right Back" would be it. I mean, obviously BRB is "Be Right Back" in millennial and Gen Z slang, but
Back in my day.
Hey man, it made for a cool logo, and we wanted something different. Like we talked about the league, we actually didn't like spend a bunch of time on the league name. I just know we all didn't want something kind of like cliche or
right,
cookie cutter, like
Wicked Racing League or
the low groove racing league or the low downforce like those kind of names or whatever. So it's a personal name for us, and if one of us ever steps aside, it will remain that because 2 initials aren't as cool as 3. So
that's true. And Isaiah, I would love for the whole league to show up at my door singing Christmas carols. That would make my life, I think.
that might actually be the best present I ever got. If 43 dudes travel to Ohio to sing me a present, like I'd be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I'll show up with more than just the carol.
Please just bring the carol.
Nope. Can't. I can't. I'll go on your roof start acting like Santa, and then when you come out, I'll be wearing a Santa costume, and I will. Yeah.
That's gonna be a
We'll
lot
figure
of
out the
work.
spec-
I have a 2-story house. That's gonna be
That sounds very
Don't-
stalkerish.
Hey, don't
it's gonna
worry
require a
about
lot
it.
of planning.
Nope, parachuting in, landing on your roof. I'd go through it, but if I do, that'd be even cooler. Then I can be Santa in your room.
Mason, I know you're in college. And I know you're eating ramen a lot. I know you cannot afford to parachute onto my roof.
I can't remember the last time. I can't remember the last time. Okay, you know what I had today
I love
for
ramen.
dinner. I don't really. We had, oh, what was it? Shoot. Oh, they had oh, what was it? It was chicken with jasmine rice, and then I put some type of sauce over it, and then asparagus and bits of steak.
I mean, all I'm gonna say is when I was in college as a freshman, I ate better than I had my whole life that freshman year on meal plan. So
Yes.
See,
That's very true.
I'm kind of just talking out of the side of my mouth. I didn't go to college. I was too busy learning stuff.
don't
so
get me wrong, second, third, and fourth year, you're eating ramen a lot of the time, but
I
the
lo- I
first year
love
on meal
ramen.
plan,
Well, see, I went to a trade school, and that was what I was doing. It was ramen and hot dogs, 6 out
Ooh.
of 7 nights. So
Dude, when you're in the barracks, especially like right out of boot camp, you have no money. You have no money. So, and if you miss chow hall, then there's no food. So I got really creative with ramen. I got a couple pretty good little unique ramen recipes. So
boy.
don't
Need-
sleep on
need to f-
ramen.
Need to figure that out before I go, because I know I go the third week of May to Texas, Laughlin Air Force Base.
oh nice,
So I will be
it's a
there.
great
and then-
country.
Country.
It's a great, it's a great country.
And then I go to Mississippi for my tech school. So right on the ocean.
That's not gonna be as good. Mississippi,
No,
it's
it
not
won't.
an ocean. I mean, come on, it's the Gulf of Mexico. It's not that glamorous.
It's the ocean. No, it's the ocean.
I
No,
guess
it's
if you're in Iowa, I guess that is the ocean for you. But man, the Gulf of
our big-
Mexico is pretty rough.
My biggest ocean is right outside this building right here. It's called a river.
Boy, you have a lot to learn.
Hey man, you know I make a lot of corn. Eat a lot of
Yeah,
corn.
Ward makes corn. But
And
we're a little off track, and I mean, I don't necessarily have anything
Oh,
else to
my bad.
cover. No, you're fine. We can get into a little bit of NASCAR news. There really isn't much. Again, like we said last week, we're not going to have much really to cover. I think the two big stories this week were one, Ryan Preece officially getting announced as RFK's third driver. So RFK has a third driver, and it's Ryan Preece, and they're sponsored by Kroger. From what it seemed like, might be a full season sponsorship. by Kroger.
It's I don't believe it's a full season sponsor, but they will be on all three cars.
Oh, okay.
So all three cars will be sponsored by Kroger at some point, whether that means one car per race has Kroger on it or what. I don't think anybody knows the specifics. But Kroger will be on all three cars for 2025.
And I know Kroger likes to do something where they have certain products that they have good partnerships with, whether it be Velveeta or like Sara Lee bread. Like they'll put it on the car for the Kroger sponsorship.
It's similar to what Food Lion used to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Zach, we are not doing a Sundance Pizza sit down this evening because we've had Mason before. Yes, so Mason's not a new guest. I don't remember what episode that was. He was on here.
So, I was thinking, Steven, I was thinking about our episode last week. And of all the things we talked about the championship race, we did not talk about the pace car spinning out
I
and
thought we did
taking out
briefly.
the sound barrels. I don't think we did at all.
You guys mentioned it, but it kind of got diverted very quickly to something else.
I think it's funny because it's one of the more eventful things to happen the whole championship weekend, honestly, besides maybe Justin Allgaier's championship win finally.
Yeah, that was awesome.
But, there's no question. Everyone just kind of glossed over it. And I can't kind of hear, like, what happened to the driver? Did anything happen? What happened to the car? Did they wreck it? Did they just
Let
throw
me
it to the
tell you,
junkyard?
as someone that watched that happen from the grandstands, that's the first time I've been to a lot of NASCAR races. I have never heard the entire crowd silent at one time. nobody. It was so bizarre that nobody could even react to it. Um, I don't know what that pace car is made out of, or if those are just really weak sand barrels. That thing didn't have a scratch on it.
It tanked those
The
barrels.
bumper clip was disconnected. I will say that it
Oh,
was hanging
okay.
on a little bit.
I couldn't see that from the stands, but they showed
This
it
is
up
white
on the
Cameron.
jumbotron, and it looked pristine. I think that pace car driver probably has to find a new job, but the craziest thing about that is he almost. I mean, I don't know what the damage would have been, but I don't know how close he got to Chase Elliott, but he couldn't have been more than an inch away from just taking Chase's nose off.
Oh man, could you
Um,
imagine?
I wouldn't have even been super mad, to be honest. But
Hey.
You wouldn't, but I mean, it would
That's
cause
my
a stir.
driver.
That's for sure.
but yeah, no, it was bizarre. You know what I mean? Phoenix, that's kind of a strange pit road. So I can imagine being a pace car driver if you're not super focused in that moment. You know, it can probably sneak up on you. But man, what an odd thing to happen.
It was very peculiar, and I think they tried to like talk about it real quick on the broadcast, and then like kind of just push it to the side because I'm sure NASCAR and Toyota didn't want that getting replayed all the time.
I think you're right because even at the track, typically, so for those of you that have never been to a NASCAR race, the feed that is on at a race is not the Fox broadcast race. They have
NBC.
NASCAR or NBC, Fox and or NBC. They have NASCAR TV. I believe Fox uses a lot of the same cameras and stuff like that. But one cool thing about being at the races, they will show different things, more track related things on those TV, and they showed it for a very brief second, and they really didn't talk about it after that. They're like, "Hey, this happened," because people down in like turn one didn't really know what happened. So you know they touched on it really briefly, and that was about it. We saw the pace car drive down pit road, and then they kind of circled back into the garage area. And every pace car driver gets out, and he's looking at the like typical like, "Oh, I just got in an accident" kind of reaction. He's like looking at the car, and he's kind of doing one of these. And I think they sent one of the Chevy trucks out to pick the field up. Like one of the safety trucks just kind of went out there to pace the field. And that was about it. I didn't actually watch the broadcast of the championship race, so I can't comment too much on what it was like on TV.
You didn't miss much. I can promise you that.
I was there, so I can imagine.
Yeah. But I guess in the other news that we had, there was another confirmed signing, and that would be Riley
Yeah.
Herbst of he's going to be driving for 2311 next season, whose charter situation is hanging in the balance, but he's supposed to be racing full time with Monster Energy backing him in the 35 car.
Yep.
I did some digging into why it was the 35 because the 45 and the 23 are Michael Jordan numbers from his career, and the 35 also was. However, it was his number for the Scottsdale Scorpions in the Arizona Fall Baseball League when he was making his run through the ranks in minor league baseball.
There's a fun fact for you.
Yeah, so all three, 23, 35, and 45 Michael Jordan numbers. I think it comes as a little bit of a shock to people, that move. Riley Herbst being a Ford driver, but I think he proved a lot of his talent and skill in Xfinity, and I would say it's a well-deserved ride for him.
I'm going to disagree with that. I think Herbst, he's been in Xfinity for 3 full-time seasons and has 2 wins? Maybe 2 wins. I think
Didn't he have 2
if
wins
this-
last season?
I don't.
Didn't
I
he
don't
win?
think
He won
so.
Indy and then
Maybe.
Phoenix.
Let's
Yeah, I
let's
think
find out real
so.
quick.
Let's look it up.
He
I
had
don't
that
wanna-
amazing race at
Well, he
Indy
won
with
Vegas.
Eric Almirola and Cole
I know.
Custer.
I think he won Vegas.
So that would be 3.
Let's see how many races. He won 2 races in 2024.
Yes, 3.
3 total.
His- okay, yeah.
Only
so,
in Xfinity, only 3.
so 3 seasons with 3 wins. So wins are great. But I think if it wasn't for the money that Monster Energy has behind him and the relationship that Monster Energy already has within the Toyota slash 2311 camp, Riley Herbst would not be driving in the NASCAR Cup Series.
That's probably fair.
I think there are at least 3 or 4 other drivers that come to mind that are in Xfinity or even trucks that would probably deserve a spot over Herbst. But at the end of the day, it's business. I'm not saying he doesn't necessarily deserve to be there. He's a good race car driver. And I don't have anything against the guy, but I just think this was a money move, especially given, 2311's issues, if you want to call them that right now, and all the uncertainty that's kind of going into 2025. I think having the backing of a big corporate sponsor like Monster is probably a big deal for them. At this point, Monster's going to be on what 2311 cars because Reddick runs they were on his car for more than half the season last season. Now they'll have Herbst, and then they're still on they're on Gibbs's car pretty often over at Joe Gibbs Racing. So it'll be interesting to see how he does in Cup. I don't have any expectations of him either way. But I don't know. If it wasn't for the money, I don't think he'd be there.
And I think a lot of people feel similar in the way of Ryan Preece. He got that position because of his relationship with Kroger, and it just slotted it in. And I'm not making a sly move at Ryan Preece. I think he's a solid driver. Is he Cup level? I could see other guys taking or having a little bit more talent or potential, but it is the sport that we are in currently. Of you need money and you need backing to get a Cup ride.
Preece have a relationship with Kroger? I thought that was
Yes.
Stenhouse.
Stenhouse as well, and also Christopher Busher. Chris Busher.
I always thought Preece got into Cup. I mean, excluding talent or whatever. I always was under the impression that Tony Stewart kind of got him into Cup.
Yes, that is fair. He got him back to Cup, I guess. I think that's the
fair.
way.
I think Preece might surprise some people. I'm not a Preece hype train. I'm not even I wouldn't even consider myself a fan, to be honest. But he's never been in a good car, so we'll see.
Well, let's look at RFK as a whole. You didn't really expect Brad Kay or Chris Buescher to do what they've done in the past couple of years, and here they are. So them expanding, even 2311 expanding amidst all the controversy is kind of intense and interesting as the whole situation unfolds. But I think Mason has an opinion here. He's really, really waving his hand
Just
there.
feel free to
Yeah.
interject, Mason.
Yeah,
Mason, what you got there?
Oh, no, you guys know way more about this than me. But I was more talking about the fact that these are both teams that last year were a two-charter team. And I know in an earlier podcast last season, I think I brought up the fact of RFK bringing in Carson Hocevar, and you guys shut that down really quick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obvious for different reasons. Like at the time, I don't know what it was for, but I was saying that he should get into NASCAR ride, and he's done pretty well with. It's Spire, right? He's with.
He definitely outperformed what people expected.
Yeah.
I don't like Hocevar, but he exceeded expectations for sure.
Yeah. So my question for just going off like that, do you think these teams that were two-charter, do you think they're going to keep the same speed? Do you think they're going to go faster, or do you think they're just going to lose money and start to go or degrade?
I think it's really interesting. And I think actually I look at Spire when looking at my first example of expanding to 3 cars is tough. Usually one will fall out of the wayside even. Because you had Corey LaJoie, you had Zane Smith, and you had Carson Hocevar. One of those did not fit in with the rest as it shook out. So I think RFK is building something amazing there, and they're a really good feel-good story, I think, for NASCAR. At least me personally, I think Brad was always a villain, and I think a lot of people have a soft spot for him now because of what he's investing into the sport and actually trying to grow RFK to what it was back in its glory days, and it's really good to see. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. I think that's an excellent point. I agree 100%. I think especially if you're like me and a couple other guys that have watched for a really long time, at one point, Roush Racing was a 5-car, not 4-car, they were a 5-car powerhouse. All 5 of their drivers at any given Sunday could win the race. And we've slowly seen, up until 2022, Roush become kind of a shell of itself. You know what I mean? I was never a big Brad Keselowski fan. I didn't avidly dislike him, but I definitely didn't cheer for him. But I don't think it can be disputed that he turned that ship around. I think all of the momentum and the big changes that you've seen to that organization, I think that's all Brad Keselowski. So if I had to put money on it, I think we see Priest probably over-deliver expectations next season as a third car. I think we probably see Herbst either meet expectations or fall slightly below them. I think 2311 is going to struggle a little bit next year, solely because, look at Stuart Haas. We see what happens when a team owner is distracted. And Denny, I don't like Denny Hamlin. I've never made any secret about that. But, he obviously built something over there with Jordan that is a good program. But this lawsuit is not going the way they thought it was going to go. What?
They have a lawsuit? Oh, I didn't
Oh,
even know
goodness.
anything about this.
So to catch anybody
Can you
up,
give me a rundown?
2311 and Front Row Motorsports back earlier in this season refused to sign the charter agreement. All the other teams signed. 2311 and Front Row Motorsports then decided to sue NASCAR on antitrust grounds, and they hired that I can't remember his name right now, but they hired the same lawyer that basically revamped the NFL and the NBA, created the free agency within those sports, things like that. The latest news is 2311 and Front Row had asked for an injunction to basically run as chartered teams in 25 while this lawsuit plays out. And that was shut down. So basically, I think what the compromise is at this point is they're going to run as open teams because NASCAR removed their "you can't sue us" clause in the open team contract. But they just basically had the whole case reset because the judge more or less said, well, the grounds that you're kind of going after this on are no longer met based on the decisions that you're making. And them adding a third charter, I don't know if this has been touched on or not, and I'm not a legal expert, but if I was the judge and I had these teams come to me and say, this charter system's unfair, NASCAR's unfair, this charter system is broken, and then that team goes out and spends $40 million on another charter, that to me would give me pause. And it seems to have had that effect on this judge. So I think, because they have to reset. I don't know the exact place that the lawsuit is in or the legal verbiage. But 2311 basically has to go back to the drawing boards with the lawyer and come back with a different appeal.
Right.
So
A lot of
but
money
that's
down
To
the drain.
touch in there real quick.
yeah, please do, because I don't have the finer points.
No,
so.
you hit the broad high end view of it very well. But the injunction was for, like you said, so they can race as chartered next season. And that was initially denied by NASCAR and the judge. So they appealed it. The appeal was supposed to happen sometime in December if it was expedited. The appeal was just pulled by 2311 yesterday or the day before. To now they're no longer going to have that appeal case. There is a theory that goes along with that, that they pulled the appeal, so they're going to resubmit the injunction because now that they have that third car, they can prove actual harm done to the team. They don't have that third charter officially. Technically, they don't have any charters right now, but that third charter they don't have because it was never approved by NASCAR. And a point could be made that that's financial harm to them, that NASCAR is not approving it because they didn't sign the charter agreement, which is valid, and you can have arguments here and there. But it seems to be expected that 2311 may refile for an appeal to race as charter teams next season, but they already confirmed that they're going to be there no matter what.
Yeah, I don't know, man. When this first started, just based on the information that we were kind of given as fans, I really saw the lawsuit kind of going in 2311's in Front Row's direction, and my sole kind of feeling about that is because if it goes to court, NASCAR has to open the books, and NASCAR doesn't want to open those books. It's not good for them. It's not good for the TV deals. It's really not good for the sport. Like, it might be in the long run, but initially it won't be good. Because we all know NASCAR's making a lot of money. But the more that comes out about it, the more it seems like it kind of seems to me, the vibe I get is 2311 and Front Row filed this lawsuit as kind of, I don't want to call it a bluff, because I'm sure it's more than a bluff because of the money and time they're spending on it. But I think it was a way to say, hey, we're willing to do this to get what we want. And now that it's kind of starting to progress in court and things like that, I don't know. It's looking less optimistic for me for those two teams. What that means for the future, I don't know. Go ahead, Carl.
And I think this all stems from Mason's original question: is if they add these cars to the team, will the teams be faster? Will they have the same speed? And Mason, I think with the combination of these two aspects of this whole situation, is this what it boils down to. If we look at smaller teams adding stuff into the future, let's look at Furniture Row Racing. They win the championship, what was that, 2016, 2017? With Martin Truex Jr. in 78. Yeah, and they're a single car team out of Denver, Colorado. Unheard of. That doesn't happen. But the moment they add a second team, which was the 77 of Eric Jones, the moment that happened, everything fell off. The performance fell off. Neither team performed to the expectations of anything else. And we see that regularly. The more, the harder these smaller teams try to make a foothold into the sport, the harder it is to maintain that foothold because of the charter system. These teams have to spend so much on these charters that the entire performance of the team as a whole decreases because they have to invest so much in those charters. Right now, I think it's a huge power move for especially 2311 to say, hey, despite all this, we're adding a third team because we are determined to be successful with not only 2 cars, but 3 cars in its entirety. So I think this is more of a protest to that charter system with 2311 adding that third car of the 35.
I mean, it's a snowball effect, right? Because you put all this money into this additional charter. Well, money's not unlimited. So now, I mean, even if you have X, Y, and Z coming in as new revenue streams, that money is coming from somewhere, right? Whether it's R&D, whether it's hiring person A over person B, what have you. I mean, look at a really good example of this, not so much with the charter system in particular, but expansion and what that can do to a team when their priorities are put in too many places. Look at Kaulig Racing. Kaulig Racing a few years ago in Xfinity was a powerhouse, and they were winning races in Cup on a part-time basis. No one talks about Kaulig Racing now. So, Carl, you look confused.
Sorry, I'm hearing some stuff in the background. Sorry, don't ignore me.
Blink twice if you need help. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, take out the legal side of it. I think it's just a, it depends which team is successful. If not both, is going to depend on the resources they have and how they choose to take and disperse those resources. I think RFK, just based on what I've seen, has a better, more cohesive group going.
They have a good foundation.
Buescher and Brad, I mean, I know there was some disparity through the season, but for the most part, they were running pretty consistently near each other. When one car was good, the other car was typically good. If one car was bad, one car was typically also bad. 2311, and now you can chalk this up to driver talent or whatever you want to chalk it up to. Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace weren't even in the same zip code this season. Tyler Reddick, regular season points champion. Bubba Wallace didn't even make the playoffs, right? He didn't make the playoffs. this year.
However, it was statistically, I believe it was his most consistent season.
And stats are fine, but at the end of the day, when your teammate's standing on top of the podium and you're not even like, my point is there's a much bigger disparity there. So I have more confidence that RFK is going to be able to have a cohesive, well-distributed system than 2311. And you also just have experience at Roush. You know what I mean? A lot of those guys that are in that organization have been doing this for a really long time. I can't really say that about 2311. I don't know the ins and outs of their organization, but Brendan says, how much more are teams getting under the new agreement?
So
I
don't know the actual numbers. I know a rough idea, and
I don't think it was ever made. I don't think it's made public, the actual number. So
it was said by, I don't want to missay who it was. It was like either Jeff Gluck or someone like that actually broke it a month or two ago, whatever it was. And I think that's going back to I was going to make a point of, I don't think that the lawsuit is about money.
No, I don't
think
either.
It's about the money disparity that the teams were complaining about, because I think that was resolved. I think teams were making, again, don't quote me on these numbers. These are the rough from what I remember. I said it on one of the podcasts at the end of the season last season. But I think teams were getting about 15% of media revenue before the deal. The new deal, I want to say it's close to 45%.
I believe you're right.
It's ballpark. Take that with a grain of salt. But it's a much bigger chunk that they're going to be getting from NASCAR and tracks from that media deal. So they should be able to be a little bit more self-sufficient. I think it really just came down to a lot of IP or intellectual property that the teams would be giving up to NASCAR, basically surrendering. So NASCAR has the rights to certain likenesses of Michael Jordan and team brands and team numbers. And
that's the same thing I was going to say. Is I think a lot of this is about IP. I know that's one thing, you know, like Steven just touched on, who, as of right now, the way the charter system is written, is NASCAR has ownership of the name, likeness, image, etc. of the teams and the drivers. Sorry, I'm messing with my camera. Another big thing I think was just how involved the teams are in decisions. That seems to be a big part of, at least if you listen to Denny on the podcast, NASCAR seems to unilaterally make decisions as far as, we're going to make this part change. We're going to make this change on the car. We're going to
they
make
control
this
that
change
whole process.
to the points. We're going to make this change to this, that, and the list goes on and on and on. And I think a sticking point for Denny is they want the teams to have more input. So I think they want to go back to more of how it was back in like the Bill France senior days, or even Bill France junior days, where I think they came to the teams and the senior drivers more and said, hey, what do you think about this? Or, hey, this is what we want to do. Can you get this relayed to the drivers in a way that makes sense? I think, personally, kind of a tangent, I'll keep it short, but I think the fact that NASCAR controls everything about this car is a huge problem.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is me personally, this is super subjective. I don't care about parity. I don't care that every car runs within 0.2 of a second of another car despite the team and things like that. I want NASCAR to have superstars. I think NASCAR needs that because right now they don't have it. We don't have a Jeff Gordon. We don't have a Dale Earnhardt. The biggest argument you can probably make for it is Kyle Larson. I think he's probably the only driver in NASCAR that kind of transcends into other areas. I mean, and he doesn't even do it that well. He's still confined to a racing bubble. And I don't think you get superstars with parity. Now, should Hendrick Motorsports be able to make cars that go 30 miles an hour faster than other cars because they have money? No, I don't agree with that either. But I also think teams should be able to control their race cars and set their race cars up. I was talking when I was at Daytona. I got a chance to talk to an engineer for Richard Childress Racing when we were down in the pits, and I asked him. I was like, "Hey, like, you know, it seems like you guys don't have a lot of wiggle room anymore. Like, what can you actually adjust on these cars?" And he said, "We can play with the shocks." That was his answer to my question, and I just think talent and experience should matter more than it does right now. And the fact that NASCAR gets to say, you get these parts from these people at this price, you don't get to ask any questions about it. It might not even be within spec, and we might inspect your car and it might fail inspection and you still don't get to say anything about it. Those are all things that I can get behind. You know what I mean? I don't like what's the term people use for it? Kit car?
Yeah,
I don't like
I've heard that.
I don't like the kit car generation of NASCAR. But
Well, and I think
I'm also wearing a Winston Cup points hat, so take that with a grain of salt.
And I think this all is again a snowball effect. Is these teams are required to pay so much just to run a charter, just to reserve a spot on the roster for NASCAR. They're required to put X amount of millions of dollars to say, hey, I just want to run. And by the way, you have to run everything we run. You have no control, but you have to pay X amount. And I think a lot of these teams with the spec parts and everything are saying, hey, why are we paying this much money with these parts you're overcharging us for when we can go and individually create and have a little more control over our team that's even cheaper? And again, I think that rolls into how the open team works is they're not going to roll a charter. They're going to roll some more open individual parts, and maybe, I mean, of course, the parts are all supplied by NASCAR, but saying, hey, we're not going to run by that rule. We're going to see if we can do our own rules. And I think that also involves all this. Yes, the NIL, the IP, all that stuff is kind of established. The main issue is, hey, why are we paying so much to your sports when we're not seeing the returns, especially when these single double car teams are saying, hey, it's not worth to expand because it costs too much.
I mean, can't you make that argument that I guess that it is worth it? Otherwise, the price of charters wouldn't have gone up. I don't know, what is it, 10x over the past 5 years? Like,
My only pushback on that is the charter system is the only. Oh, what's the right word? The charter system is the only tangible thing of value that the teams have.
Mhm.
That's it. Because I mean, how many teams did we've? I can't even name them all, but the first one that comes to mind is Furniture Row Racing. All these we've had tons of smaller 1 and 2 car organizations go by the wayside because, and at the end of it, you see these teams that maybe were really like, look at Furniture Row, right? Literal NASCAR champions, right? NASCAR Cup Series champions who within 2 or 3 years of that championship were selling their cars, their parts, their machinery, their buildings for pennies on the dollar because they had nothing of intrinsic value to offer to anybody. So I think the charter system only works in a way because it's the only thing that they have as their bargaining chip. I'm not against the charter system personally. I think it does more good than it does harm. I don't know. No team in NASCAR, especially at the cup level, should be losing money. Nobody should be losing money in NASCAR.
well, especially going forward, hopefully.
I
with
think the TV
increased
deal will help.
revenue. Yeah, the increased revenue
'Cause-
for teams should definitely help since they're not relying on sponsors as much as they used to.
They're not. Yeah, and the TV deal was, I think, almost $8 billion.
Yeah, 7.7.
With a B.
Yeah.
Um,
For
so
was that
that's-
7 years too? So it's
yeah, right. Over 7 years. So that's $1 billion a year. Over $1 billion a year.
1.1 billion a year over 7 years.
So that's a good chunk of change. You know what I mean?
and teams will get very close to half of that. So
Yeah.
take 500 million, let's just say, and split that over the teams. That's what you get per year.
I'm not
But
on
that's
the
what 43 teams,
36 chartered.
Yeah.
36 charter
36 charters.
teams. Oh yeah.
I'm not on the NASCAR is the boogeyman train. NASCAR is not the NBA. NASCAR is not the NFL, and I don't think it should be ran the same way. But there are things that could be made better for sure. I think we're stuck with the next gen car for at least a couple years. That's my main gripe is the car and the way they're, like I just went over with the car and the way they source the cars and stuff like that. But
It sucks.
that just might be NASCAR now.
I think it's unfortunately the evil that we have because in this world where sponsorships are dying, I really think, well, in NASCAR sponsorships are dying to a degree. Manufacturers, I think, are the biggest sponsors, if that makes sense. And those manufacturers want the cars to look like the cars, and I think they've done a really good job of these stock cars now do somewhat resemble the real cars. Like
They look great. I just wish we would have kept 15-inch wheels on them and not put like 2-foot wide tires on the things.
I mean, easy to say now.
Hindsight's a son of a gun.
Yeah.
But I really think if the car was designed around a smaller, more narrow tire, we wouldn't have as many problems. At least at the short tracks.
That's
'Cause,
probably fair.
Dude, say what you will, but that 1.5 mile racing is good.
It's
like
the best.
Every 1.5 mile track we go to now is a banger.
And 2 miles.
Watch Kansas races. Yeah, and 2 miles. Watch Kansas races from 4 years ago and tell me that you're entertained as opposed to a race in 2024. The short tracks, not great. The road courses, the cars are almost too good. Like the cool thing about old NASCAR road racing was the cars weren't made for that. So they drove like crap, and you know what I mean? You got to kind of watch guys figure it out. But I got to give props to Goodyear. I think Goodyear is kind of saving the NASCAR short tracks. Especially towards the end of the season, we saw them come out with that softer tire and things like that. It helped the Martinsville race. Martinsville wasn't a banger, but it was better than the fall race last year at Martinsville. Should it be up to the tire manufacturer to fix the car? No. But hopefully, if Goodyear continues to get a little more aggressive, bring softer tires, maybe we can mitigate some of that.
I think we can all agree that there's a lot that could still be fixed, and that's anything.
Oh, sure.
So I think overall, I would say most people are pretty happy with the place NASCAR is, at least from a on-track product. Yeah, there's some stinkers, don't get me wrong, but there always have been. It doesn't matter what year it was. Like there are some tracks that just do not run well in whatever car. I think the car of tomorrow, I think, was one of the worst all around, and we are 10 times better than we were then, at least driving wise.
It's a really unique situation right now because if we didn't live in this constant 24/7 information social media age that we live in, nobody would be complaining about NASCAR.
You wouldn't hear it.
You wouldn't hear it at least. Because the on-track product now is objectively better than it has been for probably 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
At
The
least.
Gen 6 car, I mean, it's crazy to me that you see people online now talking about how great the Gen 6 car was, because that car was garbage. That car didn't race good hardly anywhere. Short tracks, I guess, but that was it. And even those weren't great. But that just goes to show what nostalgia does. But I mean, how many closest in NASCAR history finishes did we have this season? 3?
2, at least.
2?
2 or 3, yeah.
And as
But
a
that
fan,
doesn't mean what makes good, I guess. But I see where you're going.
as a fan who is lucky enough to go to a lot, I went to 6 races this year. Kyle Larson didn't win any of them, and that's upsetting.
I
But
blame you.
every race we went to, excluding the Coke 600 because of rain, was a pretty good race. Even Texas was a good race.
Texas was great for Texas standards. this
Texas.
year.
Steven and I looked at each other at one point during the Texas race, and we're like, "This is pretty good. This is a good race."
We were not standing those last 30 laps. Like, it was very exciting and very good. Honestly, once Kyle Larson lost his wheel, it got really exciting because everyone else
Again,
could compete.
Yeah, Larson was up by like 3 seconds.
Yeah.
But so objectively, the on-track product is good. You know what I mean? Are there changes that need to be made? Yes, but I agree with Joey Logano, and it hurts me to say that. But NASCAR fans are spoiled. Name me any other sport that actually takes feedback from fans and makes any changes. Because that sport doesn't exist. The NFL isn't changing rules because the fans are upset. The NBA isn't changing rules because the fans are upset. Well, they did change their playoff format, I guess, but that remains to be seen if that works out. I agree. I think it's real. I think that is a small brain idea.
I mean, I have a couple sports that
But-
changed because of fans.
I'm optimistic. I think I don't think this lawsuit's going to have the implications people think it's going to. I think this is going to quietly die. Maybe it dies in the favor of NASCAR. Maybe it dies in the favor of 2311 in one way or the other. I don't think it's going to rock the sport. But I guess that's my take on it.
Honestly, I didn't know we were still on this. I
Yeah.
spaced off so hard there. I was like,
Mason took off his hat.
For
Mason
not really
Ace.
having a lot of NASCAR news to talk about, I think we covered a lot pretty well.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mason aged 15 years when he took his hat off.
yeah, my bad. Sorry.
No,
The hairline really digressed too.
Oh,
overall,
I wasn't talking about your hairline.
really good
Oh,
conversation.
somewhat.
No, go ahead, Mason.
Oh no, it's okay.
I was just going to move on to our third and final Rev question of the evening and then wrap us up. Running a little late and got to take the dogs out into the snow.
You have snow?
We do. We have about an
Oh,
inch and a
man.
half of snow on the ground right now.
Shut up.
Oh, yeah.
Oh man, we don't have any up here. We got a little bit of sleet earlier, but that was it.
It's supposed to be snowing the rest of the night, so we'll see.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yeah,
Be
it's the
jealous.
earliest I think I've ever seen snow in my life. So
Well, you did live in Texas.
exactly, snow was
He's never-
if
he's
you're
never
lucky
seen-
once in a year thing.
He's
Oh,
never
you're
seen
good.
snow in his life.
You're gonna see plenty of it now.
I'm excited for it, but let me get this transition going.
Computer drive. Oh no.
All right. So question 2 was the championship question, and now we move on to question 3. And like I said, there is a theme for this week, as you can tell. It is Jeff Gordon themed, thanks to Rev, and it just worked out perfectly that Adam was on this week for it. But our third question for the evening is: how tall is NASCAR racing star Jeff Gordon? Is he 5'9", 5'8", or
Oh, jeez.
5'7"?
I thought he was
I'm not
4'2".
gonna. I'm not gonna cheat,
Yeah,
and I'm gonna
please
say,
use integrity.
okay. I'm gonna wait for the picture to come up on the stream.
Let me know when.
Wait, is this during his
Now.
prime or now? Because
30
people do
seconds.
shrink when they get older. I want some clarity here.
I don't have the clarity. I just
Oh,
took Revs.
It's looking like I'm wrong here.
You're wrong. Oh, sorry. I feel kind of bad.
I don't know, man.
But you are. Oh,
What?
I know he's not
I-
5'9", so
I just know he's 5'7" because I remember meeting him at Knoxville when I went to the Knoxville Nationals, and I asked him what's like a good height for like what's the tallest you can be to be a sprint car racer, because at the time I really wanted to be a sprint car racer because I was doing a bunch of dirt stuff.
Gavin said
And
5'9".
he was like oh, I'm 5'7", so like that's like max of what you want to be.
Well,
That's
there
one
you
reason,
go.
that's one reason why I knew that. That's just stuff you don't need to know.
And
6'9",
without further
okay.
ado, he is 5'7".
Yep, I missed that one.
And again, that's
Oh.
according to Rev, and that was probably easy enough to Google in time. But I don't know. We preach integrity here. Is what we've covered today.
What's that? Never
I
heard such thing.
integrity the hell out of that question.
Yeah, you did. You played fair. I don't know about everyone else there, but
Hey,
Sam
I'm
did
a fair,
it.
I'm a fair guy.
I'm pretty sure it was going to be 5-7.
Brendan said I trusted Adam's response, and I am wrong now.
Should
Sorry
never
about that.
Trust Adam on these types of
Yeah,
things.
I'm shady. Don't trust me.
But
He's 6'5".
before we wrap up, do want to give a quick shout out to obviously all of our sponsors: Butt Kicker, the leader in haptics; Sundance Pizza; Ascendance Trucks; Ideal Lease; RevSimShop.com; Maddox Graphics, of course, and Advanced GG. And again, the promo code for Advanced GG is WolfXLive10 for 10% off your order. That will go back directly to the league. Man, thank you all for being here. Mason, Adam, Carl, thank you for showing up to your duties, your weekly duties that Richard wanted to neglect this week. I hope y'all have a wonderful Thanksgiving, whether or not you're getting with family or whatever the case is. Have safe travels if you're traveling. Have fun, eat a lot of food, and get a rest so we can be back here in 2 weeks and racing and enjoying each other again. And that goes to everyone in the chat too. Enjoy your Thanksgiving. Say hello to your family.
Have 30 cautions.
We will not have 30 cautions, but we will see
I
you all
just-
again back on the track. at
I just
Dover.
want to say real quick, for all of our new guys and all the guys that have been here for a while, thank you for being here, and please just be patient, stick with us, things will get better. And I just appreciate Steven, Carl, the whole admin team for doing everything they do. Mason, thanks for coming on the podcast tonight, buddy. And
Yeah.
okay, I hope everybody has some time with their families and takes a second to be thankful for what you have to be thankful for, because I think we all take it for granted sometimes. So
A little bit. And Brennan,
Don't worry, we
remind
love
me
you.
to, if you are a member of the league, you can get $3 off of your paint through Maddox Graphics. That can go $3 off of your paint, or that $3 can be donated to the league of your choice. Choose wisely if that is the
I'll be
scenario.
so mad at you guys.
Or if you're just on the team, you get it for free. But I won't go there.
Well, forget it.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think our team makes her own paints anyways. Happy
They always
Thanksgiving.
look like
I'll see
poop
y'all
anyways.
at Dover for the Ascendance Truck 175. Carl, you want to start our closeout? And Adam, you know what to do.
Oh, do I? I always forget it.
Oh, you'll
What's the
pick it up.
closeout?
It'll be easy. Buckle it up.
Buckle it up.
Buckle it up.
Or you'll
die.
What the heck is that?
Every time I'm
I-
on
I-
here, the fourth person I'm always waiting for them to know it, and the reaction is always exactly the same.
I said it. I said you guys just did it before I could do it.
Well, y'all have a
I
happy
was trying to do it. I was
Thanksgiving,
trying to do it on rhythm.
and we will see y'all back at Dover on December 3rd. Catch y'all in 2 weeks.
Thank you guys so much.
I